Chapter 1038. Davis fainted. Lu Yuan looked around and suddenly lost interest. Lu Yuan waved his hand and said, Zhu Junlin, do you have anything to say to Dai Tianfeng? I'll give you 3 minutes. Your Highness, I have nothing to say to him, Zhu Junlin hurriedly said. The Star Luo imperial family was about to be completely destroyed. He didn't want to have anything to do with the Star Luo imperial family. Lu Yuan glanced at Zhu Junlin and said indifferently, You're very decisive. This guy was really good at cutting off all ties with him. Haha, Lu Yuan, Zhu Junlin is a fence-sitter. If he can betray me today, he can betray you tomorrow. You have to be careful. Dai Tianfeng laughed loudly. He was about to die anyway. Before he died, he would drag anyone down with him. Although he hated Lu Yuan, he also hated Zhu Junlin. If Zhu Junlin hadn't defected to the enemy, the Xianra Empire wouldn't have been defeated so quickly. Moreover, the Star Luo imperial family had always treated the Netherworld family well. In the end, the Netherworld family betrayed them. How could Dai Tianfeng not hate them? Therefore, he deliberately tried to sow discord between Lu Yuan and Zhu Junlin. As long as Lu Yuan became suspicious, Zhu Junlin wouldn't have an easy time. It would be fun if Lu Yuan killed Zhu Junlin on a whim. That was exactly what Dai Tianfeng wanted to see. Your Highness, don't listen to his nonsense. Heaven and earth can bear witness to this subordinate's loyalty to the Hall Master. This subordinate is willing to die for the Hall Master. With Dai Tianfeng's provocation, Zhu Junlin immediately began to show his loyalty. He was afraid that Lu Yuan would really kill him. That's enough. Lu Yuan frowned and shouted loudly. As soon as Lu Yuan shouted, Zhu Junlin immediately stopped. You don't have to show any loyalty. I know what kind of person you are from the beginning. You don't have to worry that I will suspect you. Your rank is far from enough. Just do your own thing well. For Zhu Qing's sake and your contribution this time, I will guarantee you a lifetime of glory and wealth. You won't have to worry about food and clothing. Lu Yuan glanced at Zhu Junlin and said calmly, Thank you, Your Highness. With Lu Yuan's words, Zhu Junlin immediately put his heart at ease. What kind of person was Lu Yuan? Why would he need to be suspicious of a nobody like him? He was really scaring himself. Dai Tianfeng, don't even think about trying to drive a wedge between us. With that bit of intelligence of yours, you still dare to play tricks in front of me. You really don't know your limits. Lu Yuan looked at Dai Tianfeng with disdain. He waved his hand and said, Kill them all. As soon as the order was given, heads rolled and blood splattered on the stairs outside the Star Luo Imperial Palace. Thousands of people from the Star Luo Imperial Palace, including the side branches and the nobles, were all killed. From now on, the Dai clan was no more, and the White Tiger Martial Soul was no more. The Star Luo Imperial Palace was destroyed. Lu Yuan held Chihiro Snow's hand and walked out of the Star Luo Imperial Palace. His expression was very calm. The scene of thousands of heads falling to the ground was absolutely horrifying. Even Qian Rinchue's gaze changed a little. It was very obvious that she was shocked. However, he did not have the slightest fluctuation in his emotions. Winner takes all. If we were the ones who lost, perhaps our end would be even worse. Lu Yuan sighed softly. His gaze was deep and distant. Disregarding the casualties on the battlefield, this was the normal death toll of war. From the beginning to the end, only a few nobles and members of the imperial family died in the Star Luo Imperial Palace. In total, there were only a few thousand people. As for the commoners, Lu Yuan's army didn't attack them at all. What about Martial Spirit City in the original work? The number of people who died was probably uncountable. Was it okay to spread poison and massacre the city? How many commoners died? Moreover, how many of the ordinary members of the Martial Spirit Palace survived in the end? Apart from those who defected to the enemy, most of them were definitely killed. In total, there were at least hundreds of thousands, or even millions. Was there a comparison between a few thousand and tens of millions? Absolutely not. In this war, there wasn't much blood spilled. The people who were killed had to be killed, and those who couldn't be killed, he didn't kill indiscriminately. Lu Yuan had a clear conscience. Perhaps, Hearing Lu Yuan's words, Chihiro Snow responded. She wasn't an ordinary person. This short moment was enough for her to regain her senses. No matter what, we won in the end. The martial spirit palace unified the continent in the end. Chihiro Snow held Lu Yuan's hand. Her eyes were full of tenderness. Obuchi, all our efforts weren't in vain. Today, we finally got results. Lu Yuan nodded. A smile appeared on his face. He gently pulled Chihiro Snow into his arms and kissed her gently on the head. Share, you're free from today onwards. Don't forget what you promised me before. Lu Yuan said with a smile. Don't worry, I won't forget. In the future, I'll always be by your side and be your little woman. Chihiro Snow said softly. Hearing this, Lu Yuan was instantly delighted. He lowered his head and kissed Chihiro Snow's red lips. When Lu Yuan was about to touch Chihiro Snow's red lips, Chihiro Snow suddenly stopped him. What's wrong, Cher? Lu Yuan looked at Chihiro Snow with some confusion. What did you mean when you said to Davis that Zhu Zhiyun's figure was very good? Don't tell me you. Cher, don't take it the wrong way. I was just deliberately angering Davis, who knew that he would vomit blood and faint from anger. I don't have any thoughts about Zhu Zhiyun. I've said this more than once, Lu Yuan said. I won't believe your promises to women anymore. However, I'm not determined to not let you find one. After all, it's been so many years. I've long understood your playboy nature. I only have one request. You can find one, but it must be a girl with a good character. You're not allowed to find a restless person like Zhu Zhiyun. Do you understand? Chihiro Snow asked. I know. I'll never find someone with a bad character. Don't worry, Lu Yuan said. As soon as these words came out, Chihiro Snow suddenly exploded. Well, I just casually tricked you, and you revealed your true nature. You actually still want to find one? Lu Yuan's mouth suddenly twitched. F***ck. I was wondering why Chihiro Snow was so generous. It turned out that he was waiting for me here. Cher, do you want to listen to my explanation? Lu Yuan glanced at Chihiro Snow and asked tentatively. I'm not going to listen to your quibbles. I just want to bite you to death now. Chihiro Snow opened his small mouth and bit directly at Lu Yuan. Lu Yuan smiled and shook his head. He directly blocked Chihiro Snow's red lips. The two directly engaged in a verbal exchange. Chihiro Snow was joking. Lu Yuan also knew that his share was actually a little tolerant. Chapter 1039. At the pavilion in the middle of the lake, Bibi Dawn was sitting in the pavilion in a long purple dress, sipping tea. Ever since she got together with Lu Yuan openly, she had been wearing her usual clothes in the pavilion in the middle of the lake. She would only change into the Pope's robe when she went out. Outside the pavilion, in the middle of the lake, was a clear lake with ripples. A gentle breeze blew past, creating ripples. Neptunia's body, which was originally frozen at the bottom of the lake, had been taken out long ago. The entire frozen lake had also been restored to its previous state. Obuchi has only been gone for half a day. I actually miss him a little. Bibi Dawn put down the teacup and supported her snow-white chin with her jade-like hand. Her pink eyes blinked slightly, and her tone was filled with deep longing. After all her memories were restored, Bibi Dawn was now quite clingy. She could not wait to stick to Lu Yuan all the time. Obuchi will probably stay there for at least a few days. Nana and the others must miss him a lot. Bibi Dawn muttered softly. Bibi Dawn had just finished speaking when a crack suddenly appeared in the sky. Lu Yuan directly walked out of the crack in space. Lu Yuan's gaze turned and just happened to meet Bibidan's gaze. Why are you back so early? It's only been half a day. Bibi Dawn looked at Lu Yuan with a hint of surprise in her eyes. This kid was not there for a few days, but he was willing to come back. Hearing this, Lu Yuan's lips curled into a bitter smile. He shook his head, took a step, and came to Bibidan's side. What happened? You look so helpless. Did you quarrel with Nana and the others? Bibi Dawn asked softly. How could that be? Am I the kind of person who would quarrel with them? Lu Yuan shook his head and said, That's indeed not the case. Bibi Dawn said, She and Lu Yuan had been in love for so long, but she had never quarreled with Lu Yuan. She knew Lu Yuan very well. Unless it was a big matter related to his principles, he never cared about other small matters. He was also quite fond of his girlfriends. Basically, he had never lost his temper, let alone quarreled with them. Then why are you looking so down? BB Don asked curiously. Am I? Lu Yuan touched his face and asked doubtfully. Of course. You look so helpless. I thought something happened again. BB Don said. Hearing this, Lu Yuan's thoughts turned slightly. Thinking of that pair of beautiful blue eyes filled with hidden bitterness, the corner of his mouth couldn't help but twitch. She just stared at him like that, making his scalp tingle. Otherwise, he would not have come back after half a day. How come your lips are broken? BB Don put her jade finger on Lu Yuan's lips and said with concern, Be careful when you kiss Nana and the others in the future. Don't be too aggressive. You were bitten by Cher not long ago. This time it was bitten again. BB Don gently touched and said softly, It was bitten. Lu Yuan murmured softly. His eyes flashed with an indescribable look. BB Don kissed Lu Yuan's lips and leaned into Lu Yuan's embrace. Obu Chi, the continent has been unified. Can we? BB Don looked at Lu Yuan with anticipation. Lu Yuan smiled and stroked Bibidon's long purple hair. He said with a smile, Since the continent has been unified, I will marry you. What do you think is suitable? The sooner the better, BB Don said sweetly. Hearing this, Lu Yuan smiled and pinched Bibidon's little face. He said, Then let's do it on the day I ascend to the throne. Aren't you building a country and preparing to proclaim yourself emperor? After you proclaim yourself emperor, you can pass the throne to me. On the day I ascend to the throne, I will marry you in front of the whole world. What do you think? Of course that's great, but this way I will have to wait for a few months. Building a country and proclaiming myself emperor, then abdicating the throne. Back and forth for a few months. I can't wait. BB Don pouted her little mouth and acted coquettishly to Lu Yuan. Haste makes waste. Let's take it slow. I want to give you the grandest and most perfect wedding, Lu Yuan said softly. BB Don was the only person who had not been engaged to him so far. In order to compensate her, Lu Yuan simply skipped the engagement and married her first. Now that BB Don was faintly showing signs of being the queen of the harem, it was natural for her to be the first to marry. Although he had always been biased towards Chihiro Snow, in reality, BB Don was more suitable. If there were no BB Don and Guyuna, Chihiro Snow would be extremely suitable to be the first wife. However, with the existence of BB Don and Guyuna, Chihiro Snow could not suppress these two people. Chihiro Snow's aura was weaker than these two people. All right, then I'll wait a few more months. BB Don pouted, looking wronged. Lu Yuan laughed inwardly. He picked up BB Don and spun her a few times in the air. BB Don instantly bloomed into a smile, letting out a crisp sound like a silver bell. After having a lovey-dovey lunch with BB Don, Lu Yuan headed for the Angel Temple. Today was an important day. It was the day Chihiro Snow would take the 7th test of the Angel Temple. The 7th test of the Angel Temple was to pull out the Angel Temple's main artifact. The 7th test of the Holy Sword was to help an angel's inheritor pull out the Angel Temple's Holy Sword. Lu Yuan's heart was unperturbed by this 7th test. Was this 7th test difficult? In fact, it was not difficult at all. It was just the Angel Temple's Holy Sword. Even if Lu Yuan forcefully pulled it out, he could still pull it out. It was just that he was not an angel's inheritor and could not exert its full power. Within the Angel Temple, Chihiro Snow heard the voice behind her, and a trace of a smile appeared on her face. You're here, and I'm here. Lu Yuan replied, walking to Chihiro Snow's side and gently holding her small hand. Then let's go in. Chihiro Snow smiled. All right. Lu Yuan smiled lightly. His body moved, and he directly brought Chihiro Snow into the vortex at the chest of the angel statue, entering the angel's secret realm. Passing through the 9 steps celestial staircase, the two walked directly into the Angel Temple. In the middle of the Angel Temple was a huge angel statue, and on the 2 sides of the Angel Temple were the most outstanding angel martyrs of all generations. Every one of them was the inheritor of the angel martial soul. Some were divine angels, some were blazing angels, and some were six-winged angels. If Sendoryu died, his memorial tablet would be qualified to be placed in the angel temple. In front of the angel statue was an altar, and in the middle of the altar was a magnificent golden sword. It exuded a rich, holy, and light power. Although this sword was only inserted into the altar, Lu Yuan could clearly sense the terrifying power hidden within it. It was piercingly cold and unparalleled in sharpness. Although it was far inferior to Lu Yuan's super-divine artifact, the Dragon Emperor Drain Spear, it was far superior to the Golden Dragon Spear. Chapter 1040. So this is a master god weapon? Lu Yuan muttered as he examined the holy angelic sword. He had seen god weapons and super god weapons before, but this was his first time seeing a master god weapon. How should he put it? The energy it contained was quite rich. Even from so far away, he could still feel the holy energy. Cher, how do you feel? Lu Yuan shifted his gaze to Chihiro Snow. At this moment, she was staring at the holy angelic sword on the altar. Holy and holy energy was also blooming from her body. This was resonance. It was the resonance between the holy angelic sword and Chihiro Snow. I'm fine. This sword feels very close to me, Chihiro Snow said softly. That's a good thing. This means the holy angelic sword recognizes you very well. Let's not waste any more time. Let's go up and pull out the holy angelic sword. We need to finish the 7th test as soon as possible. Lu Yuan smiled. Qianrenshua nodded and replied softly. The two of them stepped forward and walked to the edge of the altar. Sendoryu's figure appeared out of nowhere. His eyes were gently blinking, and there was a trace of anticipation in his eyes. Apart from the 9th test, the most important part of the angel trial was the 7th test. The first 6 tests were just to cultivate one's basic abilities and affinity. Everything was to prepare for the 7th test. As long as she could pull out the holy angelic sword, Chihiro Snow's angel trial would be smooth. The 8th test was to repair all the soul rings in her body. The 9th test was to accept the inheritance and become a god. The 9th test of the angel trial wasn't too difficult. It might even be easier than the previous tests. Chihiro Snow took a deep breath and placed her hand on the hilt of the holy angelic sword. The golden hilt was covered with demonic runes. The sword was about 2 feet long. Chihiro Snow's snow-white hand gripped the hilt tightly. The 8-winged angel martial soul instantly appeared. Yellow, yellow, purple, purple, black, red, and yellow soul rings shone with a dazzling light. Rise! The 8-winged angel behind Chihiro Snow trembled, and her jade-like hands exerted force, releasing a dense golden light. The angelic sacred sword began to tremble fiercely. Even the entire altar began to tremble. A golden radiance was emitted from the angelic sacred sword. The intensity of the radiance was so intense that it made people unable to open their eyes. It's so hot. Chihiro Snow felt as if the sword hilt was burning her hand, causing her to look somewhat pained. Cher, you must not let go. Once you let go, you will never have the chance to pull it out again, Lu Yuan warned loudly. I know. Chihiro Snow clenched his teeth and endured the burning sensation. He exerted more strength, and the veins on his hands were exposed. The angelic holy sword began to move. It rubbed against the altar, emitting a creaking sound. Chihiro Snow furrowed her brows, and sweat appeared on her forehead. She clenched her teeth tightly, and her expression was a little sinister because she had exerted too much strength. The angelic holy sword slowly rose, and the power of light in the angelic palace became denser and denser. Chihiro Snow's forehead also became more and more sweaty. The angelic holy sword wasn't too heavy. It was only 36,000 kilograms. With Chihiro Snow's current strength of 85 extreme soul Douluo, it was enough for her to lift it. However, this test was different. The weight was only one aspect. And the process of the divine weapon recognizing its master was another aspect. It wasn't that easy to overcome. Obuchi, it's starting to suck my blood, Chihiro Snow shouted. There was a trace of panic in her eyes. She could only feel the blood in her body being continuously sucked out by the angelic holy sword. At this rate, she would probably lose more than half of her blood by the time the angelic holy sword was pulled out. A titled Douluo could still survive after losing half of their blood. This was because their bodies were slowly surpassing the limits of humans. It was just like how a normal soul master would die after having a soul bone removed, but a titled Douluo would only lose 10 ranks of soul power. However, Chihiro Snow was only rank 85. Even though she could fight a transcendent Douluo because of her martial soul bone and other advantages, she wasn't a titled Douluo. Furthermore, she hadn't mastered the esoteric secret character yet. If she lost more than half of her blood, she would die. Therefore, even with Qian Rinshue's temperament, she could not help but feel anxious when she found out about this situation. She did not want to die yet. She still wanted to live a good life with Lu Yuan and give birth to a bunch of chubby babies. Cher, don't be afraid. I'm here. A warm voice sounded. Lu Yuan's large hand directly grasped Qian Rinshue's hand. That warm touch caused the originally panicking Qian Rinshue to immediately calm down. You like to suck blood, huh? Lu Yuan sneered. The blood energy of the five-clawed golden dragon king surged out, and golden blood energy enveloped the angelic holy sword. Not long after, the angelic sacred sword suddenly buzzed and stopped sucking blood. The quality of Lu Yuan's blood was too high, and it was full. Get up. Lu Yuan tightened his grip on Chihiro Snow's hand, and the angelic holy sword began to rise rapidly. With a loud sword cry, the angelic holy sword was pulled out. Immediately, a dazzling golden pillar of light shot into the sky. Outside the angelic palace, a huge projection of an angel appeared. This projection had 4 pairs of snow-white wings and was clad in holy armor. Its delicate features were identical to Chihiro Snow's. Having pulled out the angelic holy sword and completed the 7th test, this meant that Chihiro Snow had truly stepped onto the path of inheritance. It was almost certain that he was the next angel god. Lu Yuan gently let go of Chihiro Snow's hand, and the angelic holy sword blossomed with a dazzling radiance. The golden blade was as clear and bright as autumn water. It was extremely smooth, and there was a huge and gorgeous golden gem on the crossguard that contained the rich power of light. The 2 sides of the crossguard that were originally retracted suddenly spread open like the wings of an angel, protecting the longsword. The angelic holy sword was about 2 meters long and 5 inches wide. It was much bigger than an ordinary angelic holy sword, but it was not ugly. On the contrary, it was extremely beautiful and exquisite. In Qian Rinshue's hands, the sword and the beauty complemented each other perfectly. Chihiro Snow gently waved the angelic holy sword in his hand. His beautiful eyes flashed as he chuckled softly. Obuchi, why don't you let me hack at you and see if the edge of this angelic holy sword is sharp? If you want to kill me and find a new lover, just say it. Lu Yuan rolled his eyes at Chihiro Snow. If this woman really said it, wouldn't the angelic holy sword take half of his life? With his 2nd-grade divine body, it was already difficult for him to block a divine weapon, let alone a sovereign weapon like the angelic holy sword. Even a god king wouldn't dare to block a sovereign weapon with their body. Don't you know that it can take a person's life? Not everyone was a freak like the Golden Dragon King. Only a super divine weapon like the Azura holy sword could break through his defenses. Chapter 1041. What? Are you afraid? Hearing Lu Yuan's words, Chihiro Snow blinked her eyes and asked somewhat mischievously, What do you think? This is a master god artifact. Can I defend against it with my current body? Lu Yuan said snappily. Hee. So you also have times when you are afraid. In the future, if you dare to bully me, I will use the angel holy sword to chop you. Let's see if you still dare to bully this lady. Chihiro Snow giggled. The angel holy sword in her hand blossomed with cold light. You scared me to death. Lu Yuan rolled his eyes speechlessly. If he really wanted to bully Chihiro Snow, not to mention holding a Master God artifact, even if Chihiro Snow held a Super God artifact, it would be useless. Moreover, his Dragon Emperor Drain Spring Spear was not to be trifled with. Humph! Looking at Lu Yuan's disapproving look, Chihiro Snow snorted and did not say anything. She also knew that even with the Angel Holy Sword in her hand, the gap between her and Lu Yuan was still unimaginably huge. What are the rewards of the 7th exam? Tell me about it. Lu Yuan approached Chihiro Snow and hugged Chihiro Snow's waist and said softly with a smile, "What else can it be? The reward is the right to use the Angel Holy Sword and 20% Angel Affinity. My Angel Affinity has now reached 95%. Chihiro Snow had long been accustomed to Lu Yuan's actions. Her red lips lightly opened and said indifferently, 95%? That's not bad. After the 8th exam, your Angel Affinity should be able to exceed 100%. Lu Yuan touched his chin and said softly, "What is the use of this Angel Affinity?" Chihiro Snow looked at Lu Yuan with some puzzlement. From the 1st exam, her rewards were these Angel Affinity. She did not know what they were used for. It's not very useful, but it's closely related to your divine seat. Only when you reach 100% can you inherit the angel seat. But you're destined to surpass 100%, so you don't have to worry about that. Also, the higher your angel affinity is, the easier the last round of the 9th test will be. Lu Yuan said with a smile, "You call this useless?" Chihiro Snow's eyes widened as he blurted out. This was related to the deity position, but Lu Yuan actually said that it was not of much use. If you think it's useful, then it's useful. Lu Yuan smiled faintly and didn't argue. Affinity wasn't really that useful. In any case, the 9th test wasn't that difficult. Accepting the 9 tests to inherit the deity position was the simplest. Creating one's own deity position would be troublesome. For example, Lu Yuan found it troublesome to comprehend the clear Qi God power. If he had inherited the deity position, he might have already become a god. Unlike now, he was deliberately suppressing his cultivation and tempering every step to the extreme. Now, he had already reached rank 90, but he still hadn't added a soul ring. But this time, he could go to the extreme north to absorb the 9th soul ring. If he guessed correctly, when Chihiro Snow returned from the extreme north, he should be a titled god. It wouldn't be long before he would become a god. Chihiro Snow would definitely become a god before him. Although he didn't go through the baptism of the divine realm after becoming a god, Chihiro Snow's strength was equivalent to a level 3 god. He still couldn't beat him. But Chihiro Snow's progress was so fast. As Chihiro Snow's man, he couldn't be left behind by his woman, right? He also had to improve. What's your reward for the 7th test? Chihiro Snow looked at Lu Yuan curiously. What else can it be? A god-bestowed soul ring. All soul rings increase by 10,000 years. It's better than nothing. Lu Yuan waved his hand and said. Lu Yuan didn't care about the increase of one soul ring's age, but the god-bestowed soul ring was still okay. With this one, Lu Yuan now had 4 god-bestowed soul rings. Originally, there were 5. He left 2 for Ning Rongrong, so it became 3. Now that he was rewarded with 1, it became 4. Now, after a rough estimation, when Zhu Zhuqing and the others returned, they should be almost at the soul Douluo realm. In other words, they were all 1 soul ring away. Chihiro Snow was also 1 soul ring away, which was the 9th soul ring of her first martial soul. If she had a second martial soul, she would need many more soul rings. This god-bestowed soul ring didn't seem to be enough. Hopefully, he could find a few suitable soul rings for Chihiro Snow in the extreme north. Lu Yuan thought to himself, this reward sounds good, but you shouldn't care much about it. Thinking of Lu Yuan's strength, Chihiro Snow couldn't help but shake her head secretly. Lu Yuan smiled lightly. Suddenly, his expression turned cold as some information appeared in his mind. Raising his hand to caress Chihiro Snow's face, Lu Yuan asked, have you accepted the 8th test? Chihiro Snow nodded and said, "The 8th test, go to the extreme north ice field, awaken your second martial soul, and obtain all soul rings. Time limit, 2 years. Mine is about the same. Go to the extreme north ice field, help the angel inheritor awaken her second martial soul, and obtain all soul rings. Time limit, 2 years." Lu Yuan said softly. As soon as Lu Yuan's voice fell, another voice rang out in his mind. Ding! Sign-in mission issued. Sign-in location, core area of the extreme north ice field. Time limit, 3 months. Reward, 1x Spirit Soul Method, 1x Dark Dragon King's right leg bone. Sign-in mission. Hearing the voice in his mind, Lu Yuan couldn't help but be shocked. Did I trigger another sign-in mission? It seems that this trip to the extreme north ice field won't be simple. Lu Yuan touched his chin and pondered in his heart. But then Lu Yuan recovered. With enough strength, he wasn't worried about sign-in missions at all. Spirit Soul Method. This thing is useful. If I find a fierce beast, it can at least provide 2 to 3 orange gold soul rings. This way, it will be easy to gather the soul rings for Cher's second martial soul. Seeing the reward, Lu Yuan was happy. This reward came at the right time and could perfectly solve the problem of Chihiro Snow's soul rings. There's also the Dark Dragon King's right leg bone, another proper soul bone. It's a perfect match for me. The left leg is light, and the right leg is dark. It sounds pretty good. Thinking of this, the corner of Lu Yuan's mouth couldn't help but reveal a smile. Seeing Lu Yuan snickering there, Chihiro Snow couldn't help but pat him and ask doubtfully, "What are you laughing at? Why are you so happy?" "It's nothing, just a small matter. By the way, Cher, since the content of the 8th test has been issued, then let's finish it as soon as possible. Let's rest for 3 days first. After 3 days, we will set off for the extreme north ice field." Lu Yuan said softly. "Okay, you can arrange it." Chihiro Snow smiled slightly, looking at Lu Yuan with eyes full of tenderness. Chapter 1042. The northern wind was howling, and a few figures were strolling along a small, secluded path. They were led by a man and a woman. The man was wearing a white robe made of cloud silk. He was tall and straight, with sword-like eyebrows and starry eyes. His face was like jade, and his long black hair was draped over his shoulders. There was an exquisite and luxurious purple jade Kylan pendant hanging on his waist. What modest young master! The woman was dressed in a long golden dress. Her long golden hair hung down to her waist. Her eyes were bright like the autumn water. Her nose was high, and her facial features were delicate and beautiful. She gave off a sacred and pure aura. When this man and woman walked together, the man was handsome and the woman was beautiful. They were a perfect match. "Obuchi, aren't we going to the extreme north? Why are we going to such a secluded place?" Chihiro Snow held onto Lu Yuan's hand, and there was a doubtful look in his golden eyes. "We'll pass by here on our way to the extreme north. There's something I want to settle along the way." Lu Yuan shrugged and said casually, "What's the matter?" Chihiro Snow was interested. "Murder." Lu Yuan chuckled as he said, "What? Murder? Who are you going to kill?" Chihiro Snow asked. "The previous vast Skydoa, your grandfather's old rival, Tang Chun." Lu Yuan said, "Tang Chun? Tang Chun, one of the 3 exceptional Douluo?" Chihiro Snow opened his eyes wide. "That's right," Lu Yuan said with a faint smile. He had wanted to kill Tang Chun and snatch the Azura inheritance for himself. However, his plans couldn't keep up with the changes. Bibidon first attacked the Star Luo Empire, and then Chihiro Snow wanted to take the angel test. That was why this matter had been put on hold. It was not until this trip to the northern Icelands that Lu Yuan decided to kill Tang Chun that he would pass through a place not far from the city of Massacre that Lu Yuan decided to kill him directly. He didn't have to make a special trip in the future. Not only did he come, but he also brought Long Xiaoyao and Yi Shishui with him. Once Tang Chun died, the city of Massacre would be in chaos. As the prison for evil soul masters on the continent, the Massacre City was extremely useful. A place like this couldn't be destroyed. Hence, after Tang Chun died, Lu Yuan could make Yi Shishui the new king of Massacre to take charge of the city of Massacre. Yi Shishui was an evil soul master among evil soul masters, and she was also very strong. She was more than capable of taking charge of the city of Massacre. This way, even if he killed Tang Chun, nothing would happen. The Massacre capital would continue to operate, and Yi Shishui would be able to play her part. This was killing two birds with one stone. As for Long Xiaoyao, he was only there for convenience. He was deeply in love with Yi Shishui, and they had gone through a lot together before they finally became a couple. He couldn't bear to leave Yi Shishui. However, this was also good. He could be Yi Shishui's companion. With the two of them around, the degenerates in the city of Massacre wouldn't be able to do anything, no matter how much trouble they caused. There's been no news of Tang Chun on the continent. How do you know where he is? Chihiro Snow asked as she looked at Lu Yuan with a questioning look in her eyes. Lu Yuan actually knew where Tang Chun was? Chihiro Snow couldn't help but be a little surprised. Of course I know. Lu Yuan laughed. The place we're heading to is where Tang Chun is, right? Qian Rinxue asked. Isn't that for sure? Lu Yuan rolled his eyes and said, since he said that he wanted to kill Tang Chun, he had to go to his hiding place first. Seeing Lu Yuan rolling his eyes, Chihiro Snow blushed. She felt a little embarrassed that she had asked such a stupid question. Seeing Chihiro Snow's blushing face, Lu Yuan was a little amused. She was always smart, but there were times when she was silly too. He squeezed Chihiro Snow's hand and said, we are going to the city of Massacre. The city of Massacre? Tang Chun is in the city of Massacre? Chihiro Snow opened her eyes wide again. Yes, Tang Chun is in the city of Massacre. He is the famous king of Massacre in the city of Massacre. Lu Yuan's gaze flashed slightly. His gaze was deep and carried a tinge of killing intent. Tang Chun, Lu Yuan muttered softly. He subconsciously circulated his aura, and the temperature around him dropped significantly. The city of Massacre. In a tall and gloomy building, 4 figures appeared quietly. Inside the room, there was a huge chair, and the king of Massacre was sitting on it. Feeling the aura of the 4 people in front of him, the king of Massacre narrowed his eyes. Especially when he saw Lu Yuan's face clearly, the corner of his mouth twitched. Why was this freak here again? And this time, he didn't seem to come with good intentions. You are here again. Welcome, welcome. Do you want to take a stroll in the city of Massacre? I will immediately send someone to lead the way for you. The king of Massacre looked at Lu Yuan, squeezed out a smile, and chuckled softly. No need. I am here to look for you. Lu Yuan waved his hand and said indifferently, looking for me? Is there anything that I can help you with? Just say it. As long as I can do it, I will do it. The king of Massacre patted his chest and said heroically. The auras of Lu Yuan and the others were too frightening. He was a little scared. After all, the current king of Massacre was not the original Tang Chun. Instead, he was being controlled by the Crimson Nine-Headed Bat King. He was only a rank 95 transcendent Douluo, and even the weakest of Lu Yuan's subordinates, Qian Rinxue, could beat him up. With the Massacre God Domain, Long Xiaoyao and the others could unleash their martial souls and soul skills without any restraint. The suppression of the city of Massacre was useless. That was why the king of Massacre was panicking. You could still do this. I want to borrow your head. Don't worry, I will return it to you after I'm done. Lu Yuan smiled as he said, Are you joking with me? The king of Massacre's expression turned cold. Although he was panicking, his eyes were filled with killing intent when he heard that Lu Yuan wanted to kill him. Joking with you? Who do you think you are? Are you worthy of me joking with you? I'm not here to see you. I am here to see the original owner of this body. Lu Yuan said plainly. After he said that, the king of Massacre's expression changed. The blood-red cape behind him danced, and a thick blood fog spread. A pair of blood-red wings appeared behind his back. He turned into a streak of red light and flew out of the house. He couldn't defeat Lu Yuan and the others. That was why he chose to escape. Trying to escape? Lu Yuan sneered and lightly slapped the king of Massacre's body. With a scream, The king of Massacre's body was slammed into a building on the other side. It was as if a mountain had collapsed. The surrounding buildings collapsed under this terrifying force. A handprint that was hundreds of feet wide appeared on the ground. Lu Yuan's figure flashed, and he was in midair. He waved his right hand gently, and the buildings were blown away. A huge crater was revealed. The king of Massacre's body was in the middle of the crater. Chapter 1043. With a thought, a trident mark appeared on Lu Yuan's forehead, and a bright golden light suddenly spread out, enveloping everything below. The light of the sea god was the reward for passing the 3 tests of the sea god. It was the divine light that belonged to the sea god. The light of the sea god was also full of holiness and majesty, and it was also quite effective against evil. Of course, it couldn't be compared to Lu Yuan's clear energy. Lu Yuan had always used his own clear energy, but for some reason, Lu Yuan suddenly wanted to use the light of the sea god this time. I've never used the light of the sea god since I obtained it. Let's see how powerful it is today. Lu Yuan muttered softly, and the light of the sea god released from the trident mark became even more intense. The king of Massacre, who was at the bottom of the pit, began to tremble violently under the illumination of the light of the sea god. Blood-red fog began to emerge from his body, and shrill screams that didn't sound like human screams came from the king of Massacre's body. "Come out," Lu Yuan said indifferently. His right hand formed a claw, and with a grab, a blood-red figure was directly pulled out from the king of Massacre's body by Lu Yuan. It was a bat, a huge bat. The moment it came out of Tang Chen's body, its body suddenly expanded to more than 10 meters. Different from ordinary bats, this bat's body was blood-red. It had 9 heads, and each head had sharp teeth. The 9 heads were shrieking non-stop, and they stared fiercely at Lu Yuan, looking particularly ferocious. "So this is what you look like, you ugly beast." Lu Yuan's eyes were indifferent. He clenched his fist in the air, and the huge body of the blood-red, 9-headed bat king directly shattered. A blood-red stream of light was collected by Lu Yuan. It was a right leg bone that was completely blood-red. Although the blood-colored 9-headed bat king was sinister and sinister, its cultivation was undoubtedly at the level of a 100,000-year-soul beast. A 100,000-year-soul beast would definitely drop soul bones, and the soul bones it dropped would definitely be soul bones that the person it killed did not have. Lu Yuan was currently missing a skull, a torso bone, and a right leg bone. Therefore, this blood-colored 9-headed bat king directly dropped a right leg bone. I didn't think that I would have such an unexpected harvest in the capital of slaughter. I've obtained a 100,000-year soul bone, but who should I give this soul bone to? Zhu Qing already has a 100,000-year right leg bone, and Cher doesn't lack a soul bone. However, Nana and Rong lack a soul bone. This blood-colored 9-headed bat king is bloodthirsty and evil. It doesn't match Rong's martial soul. Nana, on the other hand, has the killing god domain, which is more compatible with this right leg bone. Lu Yuan thought to himself as he finished distributing the soul bones. After keeping the soul bone, Lu Yuan glanced at the king of Massacre below. No, perhaps he shouldn't be called the king of Massacre. He should be called the vast sky Douluo, Tang Chun. One of the 3 exceptional Douluo, the vast sky Douluo, Tang Chun, who was known as the invincible earth Douluo, was definitely stronger than Sindoryu. After the blood-colored 9-headed bat king left his body, Tang Chun naturally woke up from his stupor. His blood-red hair returned to normal, turning back into black hair. His blood-red eyes also turned into ink-black eyes. His gaze was distant and filled with vicissitudes of life. He was quite handsome, and there was an indomitable arrogance and domineering aura between his brows. In between his brows, a blood-red sword imprint flickered. There was a tyrannical power flowing through his body. While it increased his strength, it also caused great damage to his body, which was already riddled with holes. Demigod realm, demigod body. As expected of Tang Chun, he is now even stronger than Pasizi, who borrowed God's power. However, it's really a pity. Even if he didn't meet me, I'm afraid he won't be able to live for long. This blood-colored, nine-headed bat king has parasitized his body for so long that his body has long been corroded. Now that the Azura god's power is instilling in him, it's the last straw that broke the camel's back. His body is already starting to collapse. Lu Yuan looked at Tang Chun, his eyes flashing as he sighed softly. Tang Chun was definitely a prodigy, someone who had enough potential to become a god. Unfortunately, he was tricked by the Rakshasa god and completely lost, falling at the last step before becoming a god. Thinking about it carefully, he had already completed the 8th test, but because his body's condition was not good, he couldn't bear the Azura god's power and couldn't proceed to the 9th test. This ending was quite pitiful. Although Lu Yuan and Tang Chun belonged to different camps and would definitely kill him, he was still quite certain of Tang Chen's character and talent. He wouldn't deliberately belittle this. When Lu Yuan was looking at Tang Chun without restraint, Tang Chun naturally noticed Lu Yuan and the others. His body flashed lightly, and he arrived in front of Lu Yuan and the others. "Thank you for saving me. I was able to get rid of that beast's bewitchment and wake up from my lost state." Tang Chun clasped his hands at Lu Yuan and thanked him. He straightened his body and glanced at Lu Yuan and the others. A look of shock flashed across his eyes. In his senses, there were actually 2 ultimate Douluo among the 4 people in front of him. The little girl had also reached rank 85, and the most surprising one was the young man in front of him. Even with his current strength, he couldn't see through this young man at all. He only knew that this young man had an extremely strong sense of danger. He couldn't help but sigh in his heart. It seemed that there were really many outstanding talents in recent years. A young man who wasn't even 20 years old actually possessed such great strength. It was really unbelievable. This kind of talent was much stronger than his. "Vast idol Tang Chun, I've heard a lot about you, but you don't have to thank me. I'm not here to save you," Lu Yuan said indifferently. "You know me?" Tang Chun didn't pay much attention to Lu Yuan's words. He was surprised that Lu Yuan actually knew him. "Light of the Sea God? You have the aura of the Sea God on you. Have you seen Pisizi before?" Tang Chun looked at Lu Yuan carefully. He seemed to have suddenly discovered something, and his expression suddenly became a little agitated. "Of course I have. We're good friends." "Yes, very good friends." Lu Yuan's eyelids twitched as he recalled Pisizi's resentful gaze. It shouldn't be a problem to call him friends, right? Tang Chun naturally didn't notice. He asked with concern, "Is Pisizi doing well now?" Lu Yuan glanced at Tang Chun intentionally or unintentionally. He touched his lips subconsciously and said, "She's doing well now. That's good." Tang Chun heaved a sigh of relief and muttered, "It's a pity that I still can't become a god. Azura, you really live up to your reputation. I still fell in the end. I was just one step away." Chapter 1044. That's fate. Tang Chun sighed. He had reached the end of his life. The Azura's divine power was too domineering. His broken body couldn't resist it at all. He didn't have much time left. Lu Yuan and the others were silent. Although Tang Chun's voice was soft, they were all powerful. His words couldn't be hidden from them. It's not that the Azura's test is difficult. It's that the Rakshasa god interfered. Otherwise, you might have become a god. Lu Yuan said, "Yes, when I found the Azura god's inheritance, I was elated. I didn't even notice that the Azura's inheritance had been invaded by the Rakshasa god's divine will. If I made a mistake, I would have been doomed." Tang Chun sighed and said, he sized up Lu Yuan. "You have the aura of the sea god on your body. You can even use the light of the sea god. Are you the successor of the sea god?" "I'm not." Lu Yuan shook his head and said, "The successor of the sea god is someone else." "Oh." Tang Chun was a little shocked. The person in front of him wasn't the successor of the sea god. The sea god didn't choose him. Was there someone more outstanding than him? Tang Chun was shocked again. He felt that the outside world had changed a lot since he woke up. It had changed so much that he couldn't recognize it anymore. He shifted his gaze again and looked at Chihiro Snow. The aura of an angel. You must be the successor of the six-winged angel god. Who is Sindorya to you? Is he doing well? Tang Chen asked. Thank you for your concern, senior. Grandfather is doing very well. Qian Rinchue's red lips parted slightly, and a faint voice came out. So you're his granddaughter? He's very lucky to have such a beautiful and outstanding granddaughter. Tang Chen laughed and said softly. He was indeed very happy. His old friends were still alive. It seemed like he was the most miserable one. He didn't have many days left to live. May I know the names of the two of you? When I woke up, there were two more ultimate Douluo in the world. How shocking. Long Xiaoyao, Yi Shishui. Long Xiaoyao and Yi Shishui asked. Nice to meet you. Tang Chen cupped his hands and said. The two of them also cupped their hands and nodded lightly. Tang Chen retracted his hand and looked at Lu Yuan calmly. You're all here for this Tang, right? Although this Tang doesn't know what you want, you've pulled this Tang out of trance. This Tang owes you a debt of gratitude. If there's anything you want, just say it. As long as this Tang can do it, I'll definitely do it, Tang Chen said in a sonorous tone. I told you, there's no need to thank us. I'm not here to save you. I'm here to kill you, Lu Yuan said calmly, his voice filled with killing intent. Kill me? Tang Chen frowned and asked. Do I have a grudge against you? There is no enmity between us. However, your surname is Tang, and you're the previous leader of the Clear Sky sect. Therefore, you should be killed. Secondly, only by killing you can I obtain the Shura inheritance. Let me introduce myself. I'm the current holy son of the Martial Soul Palace. I'm also the next pope. Do you understand? Lu Yuan's eyes flashed, and his killing intent filled the surroundings. Holy son of the Martial Soul Palace? Tang Chen squinted his eyes. He caught some strange information from Lu Yuan's words. What did you do to the Clear Sky sect? The Clear Sky sect and the Clear Sky Hammer will no longer exist in this world, Lu Yuan said casually. Creak. After he said this, Tang Chen's eyes turned blood red. A terrifying killing intent was released from Tang Chen's body. He clenched his fists so tightly that his knuckles cracked. The person in front of him had actually destroyed the Clear Sky sect that he had brought to the peak. He had also destroyed his descendants. Tang Chen couldn't help but feel a terrifying killing intent. You deserve to die. Tang Chen's aura surged, and he unleashed the suppression of a demigod. Lu Yuan waved his hand gently and dissipated the suppression. Behind Lu Yuan, Long Xiaoyao and Yi Shishui's soul power surged. Two extremely strong auras were released. The two of you don't have to do anything. I'll do it myself. Just take care of Cher for me. Lu Yuan waved his hand and said, Yes, master. The two of them nodded. They moved slightly and protected Chihiro Snow behind them. Come, let me see what you're capable of. Lu Yuan took a step forward and placed his hands behind his back. He spoke plainly. Tang Chen focused his gaze, and his aura surged wildly. A huge blood-red Clear Sky hammer appeared in his hand. His 9 soul rings, 6 black and 3 red, shone brightly. Does the Azura test reward the successor of the Azura test? It seems like it's different from the Sea God's test and the Angel's test. Lu Yuan smiled, and his expression was carefree. Make your move, Tang Chen, Lu Yuan said softly. A murderous look flashed across Tang Chen's eyes, and his soul rings lit up one after another. A Clear Sky hammer enlarged in the sky and became a few hundred meters in size. It was like a mountain as it smashed towards Lu Yuan. Wherever the hammer passed, cracks would appear in the space, revealing a dark void. The blood-red Clear Sky hammer burned with a blood-red flame, and it carried a terrifying aura. The Clear Sky hammer was once the world's tool, martial soul, and only Tang Chen could fully unleash its power. It seems all right, but it's far from enough, Lu Yuan said softly. He extended his right hand and clapped his hand. In an instant, the space collapsed. A huge palm print went straight for the Clear Sky hammer. The Clear Sky hammer, which had an astonishing might, was sent flying by Lu Yuan's slap. Even Tang Chen was sent flying, and another huge crater was formed on the ground. With Tang Chen as the center, everything within 1,000 meters was sunk by Lu Yuan's slap. This was just a casual slap. If he unleashed his true strength, it would be enough to destroy the world. Weak, Lu Yuan said softly, and his expression was indifferent. Tang Qin's earlier attack was definitely at the level of a demigod. Even Sindoryu, Long Xiaoyao, and the rest would find it difficult to withstand it. However, to Lu Yuan, a demigod was like an ant. He wasn't even qualified to arouse his interest. Tang Qin crawled up and spat out a mouthful of blood. He looked at Lu Yuan with a burning desire to fight in his eyes. This young man in front of him was too strong. He was so strong that he thought that he had become a god. However, the stronger Lu Yuan was, the more excited he was. He was a battle maniac and had the same personality as Lu Yuan. They rarely fought because it was difficult to find opponents. Sometimes, being invincible was a very lonely thing. Today, Lu Yuan's strength had evoked his strong desire to fight. Tang Qin's figure moved, and he leapt into mid-air again. The clear sky hammer in his hand shone with a red light. It was an extremely pure, killing intent. The clear sky hammer gradually changed shape in the red light and was replaced by a blood-red longsword. Chapter 1045. This sword was more than 2 meters long and 7 inches wide. It was blood-red in color and emitted a blood-red light. The hilt of the sword was 2 feet and 3 inches long. It was surrounded by faint demonic patterns. The entire sword was simple and unadorned. It was not as gorgeous as the angelic sacred sword, but it had a unique atmosphere and unusual nobility. As soon as this sword appeared, a terrifying, murderous aura suddenly appeared in the air. Tang Qin was strengthened by this sword, and the aura on his body rose by a lot, especially the sharp aura of the sword. Even though he was far away, Lu Yuan could still clearly feel the chilling aura emanating from it. Supra divine weapon, Azura sacred sword. Looking at this blood-red sword, Lu Yuan's eyes slightly blinked and light circulated. Azura God's weapon, not bad, Lu Yuan muttered softly. With a wave of his hand, a golden light flashed in his hand, and the Dragon Emperor draining spring spear appeared in his hand. A strong dragon's might burst forth, and the air was suddenly filled with golden light. Dragon roars came out. As soon as the Dragon Emperor draining spring spear appeared, the strong might directly suppressed the murderous aura of the Azura sacred sword. The Azura sacred sword made a buzzing sound, and even Tang Qin's arm was trembling. The Dragon Emperor draining spring spear in Lu Yuan's hand also trembled slightly and made a tyrannical dragon roar. The two super divine weapons had just met, and they were about to start a confrontation. Interesting, you're actually excited. But speaking of which, this is your first time colliding with a real super divine weapon. Lu Yuan said softly to the Dragon Emperor draining spring spear. The sea god's trident that he encountered on the sea god's island was only an incomplete super divine weapon. The Dragon Emperor draining spring spear did not have any reaction at all. Today's Azura sacred sword was a genuine supra divine weapon. It belonged to the Azura god, one of the 5 divine kings, and was extremely powerful. At that time, the first Azura god used it to split the dragon god and turned him into the golden dragon king and silver dragon king. This Azura sacred sword could be said to be one of the top weapons in the divine realm. Even among the super divine weapons in the divine realm, it was ranked at the forefront. It was understandable that the Dragon Emperor's draining spring spear would be excited upon encountering it. As soon as Lu Yuan's voice fell, the Dragon Emperor draining spring spear issued a clear and melodious spear cry. A golden light flashed on the golden and jade-colored spear shaft, as if it was answering Lu Yuan's words. Since that's the case, then let's blow up Tang Qin and the Azura sacred sword together. Lu Yuan chuckled. With a slight movement of his right hand, the Dragon Emperor drained spring spear pierced out. Lu Yuan didn't use his martial soul. He didn't even use his soul power or bloodline power. This spear strike was completely made up of the most ordinary strength. Looking at Lu Yuan's spear, Tang Chen's eyes narrowed slightly. The spear came slowly, but it had completely locked onto him. There was nowhere to hide, and it gave him an extremely terrifying feeling of danger. Tang Chen made a prompt decision. His first soul ring exploded and turned into a black light that fused into the Azura holy sword. The Azura sacred sword glowed brightly with crimson light. Tang Chun brandished the Azura sacred sword and slashed at Lu Yuan. Exploding rings? Seeing this scene, Lu Yuan's eyes narrowed slightly. Then, a faint smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. As if nothing had happened, the Dragon Emperor Drain Spring Spear continued to stab straight out. Boom! The spear and sword collided, and a terrifying force collided. In an instant, energy burst out, and the void exploded. Tang Chen's body was directly blasted away again. Tang Chun flew back more than 1,000 meters in midair before stabilizing his body. He spat out a large mouthful of blood. 3 soul rings exploded at the same time, and the energy of the soul rings surged into the Azura holy sword again. Slash! Tang Chun leaped, and the Azura holy sword slashed out a sword light that was more than 1,000 meters long. Wherever the sword light passed, a black trajectory was cut open. That was the space that was torn apart by the tip of the sword, and the place where the sword light landed was where Lu Yuan was. Looking at this aggressive scene, Lu Yuan did not even blink. He stabbed out with the Dragon Emperor Drain Spring Spear, and in an instant, the huge sword light that was more than 1,000 meters long turned into nothingness. Be serious, Tang Chun. Lu Yuan held the Dragon Emperor Drain Spring Spear and pointed the tip of the spear to the ground as he said faintly. The power of Tang Chen's 3 soul rings was not small. In addition to the power of the Azura Holy Sword, it was difficult for anyone in the pseudo-god stage to resist such an attack head-on. However, it was still not enough for Lu Yuan. Until now, he had only casually attacked with his own strength. He was not serious at all. Amazing! Tang Chen's eyes were filled with killing intent. Even though he wanted to kill Lu Yuan, the culprit of the destruction of the Clear Sky sect, he had to admit that this young man was very strong, unbelievably strong. He was not a god, but he was better than a god. Even a real god might be like this. However, Tang Chun was indeed Tang Chun. Even when facing such a Lu Yuan, he still did not feel afraid. Only his fighting spirit was constantly rising. Explode. Another 3 soul rings exploded at the same time. This time, it included the 7th soul ring, which was a 100,000-year soul ring. Tang Chun immediately spat out a mouthful of blood. Although the power of the exploding ring skill was great, the power of the backlash was also great. With Tang Chen's current physical condition, he could not withstand the impact of the exploding ring. Originally, he could still live for 1 or 2 months. After this battle, he would completely die in 3 days at most. Tang Chun roared, and the energy of the 3 soul rings was instantly injected into the Azura Holy Sword. The Azura Holy Sword emitted a light, and a terrifying and sharp sword chi swept across the entire arena. Tang Chen's attack had entered a new realm. Originally, he, who had just entered the demigod realm, could unleash the power of a pseudo-god stage with the help of the Azura Holy Sword. Now, Tang Chen's attack power had completely surpassed the pseudo-god stage and reached the divine official stage. Although the divine official stage was only the lowest level of the god stage, it was still considered the god stage. To be able to achieve such an attack power, the Azura Holy Sword played an important role, and the exploding ring was also an important reason. What a good exploding ring skill. I'm suddenly a little interested. It would be a pity if such a skill was lost. Seeing the terrifying attack power of the Azura Holy Sword, Lu Yuan's eyes lit up. This exploding ring skill could be said to be tailor-made for him. The higher the quality of the soul ring, the greater the power after the explosion. Who in the Douluo continent could compete with him in soul ring compatibility? Moreover, the exploding ring skill had extremely high requirements for the body. If the body could not withstand it, then not to mention hurting others, the first one to explode would be himself. But Lu Yuan was different. He already had a rank 2 godly body, and in terms of strength, it was not much weaker than a rank 1 godly body. With the secret character protecting him, he could completely unleash the power of the exploding ring to its maximum. This is getting interesting. Lu Yuan raised his eyebrows, and the blood in his body began to surge. Golden blood qi pervaded the air, and the Dragon Emperor Drain's spring spear let out a cheerful sound. Tang Chun raised the Azura holy sword high up. The blood-red light on the Azura holy sword almost condensed into a substance, hiding an extremely terrifying energy. Chapter 1046. The Azura sacred sword slashed down, and a terrifying energy burst out in an instant. However, this time, the Azura sacred sword was not as imposing as before. Instead, it was extremely condensed, condensing into a blood-red thin line. Wherever the thin line passed, space was cut apart, and a silver light circulated in it. It was the mysterious power of space. Lu Yuan raised his eyebrows, and the Dragon Emperor draining spring spear stabbed out. In an instant, it was as if stars appeared in broad daylight, and the Dragon Emperor draining spring spear bloomed with white light. The gray sky of the city of Massacre was suddenly filled with specks of light, as if they were resplendent stars. Starry sky, Lu Yuan whispered, and the Dragon Emperor draining spring spear released a white light. The sharp, cold, and penetrating silver-white spear aura was over 1,000 meters long and collided with the blood-red thin line. Starry Sky was a variation of the self-created Dragon Emperor spear technique's Meteorite Silver Dragon. In terms of power, it might not be as powerful as the Meteorite Silver Dragon, but in terms of speed and penetrating power, it was superior. The blood-red thin line and the silver-white sharp spear aura collided and immediately set off an energy storm. The space collapsed and exploded, and a terrifying energy hurricane whistled out. Lu Yuan's mind moved, and the silver-white spear aura suddenly doubled in strength, directly dispersing the blood-red thin line. The spear aura did not stop, and the energy hurricane formed by the collision was directly dispersed by the spear aura, and the remaining spear aura continued to move towards Tangchen. This was a self-created spear technique that had fused with the realm of Spear Soul. In terms of power, it was definitely not inferior to the 13 halberds of the Sea God. With Lu Yuan's current strength, even if he only mobilized the bloodline power in his body, the terrifying power that burst forth was not something that a mere divine official could withstand. Seeing that his attack was directly dispersed, and Lu Yuan's attack was still surging towards him, Tang Chen's eyes flashed with a trace of reluctance. But in the blink of an eye, it was covered by a crazy fighting spirit. The remaining 200,000-year soul rings on his body exploded at the same time. Tang Chun immediately spat out a large mouthful of blood that was mixed with fragments of his internal organs. 200,000-year soul rings exploded at the same time, and this attack was even more powerful than the previous one. Of course, the power of the backlash was not ordinary. Tang Chen's body could be said to have completely collapsed under this backlash. Tang Chun let out a long howl as blood flowed out of his mouth. His 200,000-year soul rings turned into blood-red energy and poured it into the Azura holy sword. The Azura sacred sword buzzed in the air, and the blade flashed with a dazzling cold light. The temperature in the air plummeted, and a cold and pure murderous aura instantly erupted. The soul power in Tang Chen's body surged wildly. The Azura divine power in his body poured into the Azura sacred sword like a tidal wave. The power of the Azura sacred sword became even more terrifying. The spear aura arrived. Although it was just a casual spear strike from Lu Yuan, with the Dragon Emperor draining spring spear present, the might of this spear strike still reached an extremely high standard. Although the previous attack and the energy hurricane consumed a lot of the spear aura's energy, the remaining spear aura was still enough to seriously injure a divine official. It couldn't be helped. After stepping into the divine realm, the gap between each level was huge. Even if Lu Yuan only used a little of his bloodline power, with the amplification of the Dragon Emperor draining Spring Spear, the attack power of his casual attack reached the level of a Class 3 God's full attack. Even if a lot of power was consumed, the remaining power was enough to reach the threshold of a half-step Class 3 God. It was still a huge threat to a divine official. Tang Chun held the Azura sacred sword that exuded a terrifying power and directly slashed at the incoming spear aura. Kacha! There was the sound of something breaking. The remaining spear aura was directly cut off by the Azura sacred sword, and the remaining blood-red sword light still slashed towards Lu Yuan. Lu Yuan casually waved his spear and scattered the sword light. He looked at Tang Chun with a trace of approval in his eyes. Tang Chun had used all his strength to complete this attack with the help of the Azura sacred sword, a super divine weapon. The attack had actually touched the threshold of a Class 3 God's attack power. Tang Chun was indeed a peerless genius of his generation. This strength was really amazing. However, although his battle record was dazzling, it was also at the cost of his life. With this attack, Tang Chun had already stepped into the gates of hell. Looking at the last blood-red sword light that was casually broken by Lu Yuan's spear, a trace of bitterness appeared at the corner of Tang Chun's mouth. However, a relieved smile soon appeared on his face. He had done his best. The opponent was too strong, and it was not his fault to fight. The new generation excels the old. With such a holy son in the martial soul palace, the heavenly sex destruction was not unjustified. Sindoryu, I have always looked down on you, but I didn't expect that you would win in the end. Tang Chun murmured softly. His vision turned black, and his body stopped. Suddenly, he fell. Lu Yuan moved, grabbed Tang Chun's clothes, and slowly descended with him. The ground was in ruins, or rather, the area within a radius of 2 kilometers was in ruins. Even though Lu Yuan and Tang Chun were fighting in midair, their battle was so terrifying that even a small part of it was enough to cause great damage. Looking at Tang Chun in his hand, Lu Yuan stretched out his right hand and placed it on his forehead. Seeing Lu Yuan's action, Tang Chun was stunned at first. Then, he seemed to have thought of something and laughed. You want the profound meaning of the ring of explosion, right? Lu Yuan nodded gently and did not say anything. I can give you the profound meaning of the ring of explosion, but you have to promise me one thing, Tang Chun said. At this moment, he was about to die. He had let go of all his grudges. The only thing he could not let go of was one person, a woman he had been deeply concerned about. Tell me, Lu Yuan's interest was piqued, and he stopped what he was doing. It would be best if Tang Chun was willing to give it to him. After all, he was also a hero. Out of respect for heroes, Lu Yuan was not very willing to search his soul. Before I say anything, I want to confirm something. Are you really friends with the Pasizi? Tang Chun asked weakly. Could the holy son of the martial soul palace and the high priest of the sea god island become friends? Lu Yuan was silent for a moment. Yes, we are very good friends. You're not lying to me? Tang Chun asked. Is it necessary? Lu Yuan said indifferently. It's really not necessary. Tang Chun paused for a moment and chuckled softly. He was already in this state. There was no need for Lu Yuan to lie to him. As for the profound meaning of the ring of explosion, the young man in front of him could get it by searching his soul. However, he was willing to listen to him. This made Tang Chun even more certain that Lu Yuan was telling the truth. Since you are very good friends with her, I have a favor to ask of you. Can you help me take care of her? Tang Chun looked at Lu Yuan with a hint of pleading in his eyes. Chapter 1047. Listening to Tang Chun's words, Lu Yuan frowned slightly, but soon returned to normal. You don't want to? Tang Chun saw Lu Yuan's frowning expression and could not help but show a trace of disappointment. It's not a matter of whether I want to or not. I'll take good care of her, but I'm not helping you, understand? Lu Yuan raised his eyebrows and said lightly. He did not know why, but when he heard Tang Chun's words, he felt a little disgusted. That's up to you. As long as you can take good care of her, she can live a peaceful life. Hearing Lu Yuan's words, Tang Chun was stunned at first. Then he said with a smile. Lu Yuan was silent for a moment. Thinking of the scene in the past, he could not help but ask, "Do you like Pasizi that much?" "Of course. Although we haven't been together for a long time, I'm sure I've fallen deeply in love with her. She's so beautiful and charming, and her temperament is so graceful and tranquil. She's as pure and distant as the sea, which makes me admire her. She's an existence I can never forget in my life. On the verge of death, I let go of my hatred and everything. The only thing I can't let go of is her. It's a pity that I failed to live up to expectations and failed to become a god in my life." Tang Chun said in a lonely tone. Lu Yuan blinked gently and suddenly asked, "Do you think Pasizi likes you?" "I don't know." Hearing this, Tang Chun shook his head and said, "When Sindoryu and I expressed our love for her at the same time, she only said that she would only marry a god. So you want to become a god? No wonder a fool like you can't get love. Don't forget, Sindoryu is a god's messenger and can't become a god." Lu Yuan's flat voice sounded, but it struck Tang Chun as if he had been struck by lightning. He figured everything out in an instant, and a glimmer of light burst out from his eyes. "You mean Pasizi likes me?" Tang Chun asked in disbelief. "Yes." Lu Yuan nodded gently. After getting Lu Yuan's affirmation, Tang Chun's eyes suddenly surged with ecstasy, and his face was full of smiles. "Pasizi did like you, but that was in the past. As for now," as Lu Yuan spoke, he suddenly stopped halfway through his sentence. The smile on Tang Chun's face suddenly froze. "Could it be that Pasizi has someone else he likes now? Can you tell me who it is?" Tang Chun asked after a moment of silence. Lu Yuan's eyes flickered slightly, but he didn't say anything. Tang Chun looked at Lu Yuan and thought about what Lu Yuan had said. At this moment, he was on the verge of death, but his mind was exceptionally clear. Looking at Lu Yuan, his expression became complicated. After a while, it turned into relief. "Speaking of which, you and I are indeed very similar in many ways, but the difference is that you are far better than me in these aspects, and you're more flexible than me." No wonder. Tang Chun spoke softly, as if he had figured something out, and a touch of bitterness appeared at the corner of his mouth. He had just found out that his goddess liked him, and in the next second, he found out that she had fallen in love with someone better than him. This feeling was definitely not friendly. However, this seemed to have nothing to do with him. He was already a dying man, and knowing that Pasizi was being taken care of, he could go with more peace of mind. "Take good care of her. Don't let her down," Tang Chun said softly. "Don't worry." Lu Yuan's eyes moved, and he was slightly stunned. In the end, he spat out these two words. Tang Chun smiled, and a light spot flew out from his forehead and went directly into Lu Yuan's glabella. After doing all this, Tang Chun tilted his head and gently closed his eyes. Feeling the information in his mind, Lu Yuan's double pupils flickered slightly. The supreme mystery of the great Sumeru hammer, the explosive ring that was known as a divine skill, had been taken into his bag. With Tang Chun's death, the Azura sacred sword immediately became an ownerless object. Without Tang Chun's control, it automatically flew toward Lu Yuan. After Tang Chun's death, as the only person in the world who had cultivated the godly slaying domain to the 4th level and evolved the Azura divine power, Lu Yuan immediately gained the recognition of the Azura sacred sword. Lu Yuan put down Tang Chun's body and gently stretched out his right hand. Suddenly, the Azura sacred sword seemed to be summoned and fell directly into Lu Yuan's hand. As soon as the Azura sacred sword was in his hand, a terrifying and pure murderous aura surged into it. A blood-red light began to spread from Lu Yuan's right hand to Lu Yuan's entire body. Lu Yuan's godly, slaying domain automatically appeared, and the tyrannical Azura divine power surged crazily in Lu Yuan's body. Not long after, the blood-red light enveloped Lu Yuan's entire body. Suddenly, Lu Yuan's glabella shone, and a blood-red longsword brand appeared directly between his eyebrows. The energy contained in this brand was extremely tyrannical. The moment it appeared, the brand of the sea god's trident and the brand of the angelic holy sword all collapsed. Even their remaining power in Lu Yuan's body was completely expelled by the surging Azura divine power. What was left was only the brand of the Azura sacred sword and the inheritance mark of the Azura god. The light of the sea god is gone, and the 9 trials of the sacred sword is also gone. Azura god, you are so domineering. A gloomy look flashed across Lu Yuan's eyes. Although the light of the sea god was useless to Lu Yuan, and although without the 9 trials of the sacred sword, Lu Yuan could still help Chihiro Snow in the 8th assessment, the Azura god had destroyed the brand of the trident and the holy sword at the same time, without his permission. This made Lu Yuan quite unhappy in his heart. Perhaps this was because the Azura god did not allow his successor to carry out those low-level assessments, afraid that it would lower his face. However, in Lu Yuan's view, this was a provocation from the Azura god. No one could make a decision for him without his permission, not even the Azura god. I will remember this matter. Since you have done this, then don't blame me for taking the Azura sacred sword completely. Lu Yuan's mind moved, and the clear Qi divine power pervaded the air. The Azura divine power was tyrannical, but in front of the clear Qi divine power, it was quite obedient. Lu Yuan used the clear Qi divine power to temper the Azura sacred sword, and they became closer to each other. The clear Qi divine power contained the power of law and was very mysterious. As long as it was tempered a few times, the Azura sacred sword would be completely imprinted with his brand. At that time, even the Azura god would not be able to control this super divine tool. It's really a good sword. Lu Yuan held the Azura sacred sword and waved it gently. He felt that it was quite easy to use. He did not use the sword, but this did not mean that he did not know how to use the sword at all. He had reached the realm of the spear soul. With this height, it would be much easier for him to learn the way of the sword compared to others. Even if he could not reach such a high level in the way of the spear, it would not be a problem for him to fully display the power of the Azura sacred sword. In the future, I can play with both the spear and the sword. Weighing the Azura sacred sword in his hand, Lu Yuan said with a chuckle. Chapter 1048. The Azura sacred sword was not light, but in Lu Yuan's hands, it was like an extension of his arm. After all, Lu Yuan was someone who could even subdue the Dragon Emperor Draining Spring Spear. Although the Azura sacred sword was heavy, compared to the Dragon Emperor Draining Spring Spear, it was still lacking by quite a bit. After all, regardless of level, spears were generally heavier than swords. Lu Yuan transferred the Azura sacred sword to his left hand. With a thought, the Dragon Emperor Draining Spring Spear appeared in his right hand. The two super divine tools were so close to each other that they instantly repelled each other. One spear and one sword were trembling and buzzing, as if they were competing for favor. Under the situation where no one was controlling, the two launched an imposing showdown between super divine tools. Murderous aura filled the air, and the dragon's might filled the air. In the end, the Dragon Emperor Draining Spring Spear let out a loud dragon roar and suppressed the Azura sacred sword. The Azura sacred sword instantly quieted down, and the Dragon Emperor Draining Spring Spear let out a cheerful sound as if it was celebrating its victory. Seeing this scene, Lu Yuan could not help but chuckle and shake his head. Sure enough, the Dragon Emperor Draining Spring Spear was still better. However, the spirituality of these two super divine tools was quite high. They were actually competing for favor. You still won, Lu Yuan said softly to the Dragon Emperor Draining Spring Spear. As his voice fell, the Dragon Emperor Draining Spring Spear suddenly emitted a flashing golden light, as if responding to Lu Yuan. Yo, you're still proud. When the god-killing spear was here, why didn't you compete with it for favor? Lu Yuan said. As soon as these words came out, the Dragon Emperor Draining Spring Spear immediately retracted its light, and even the tremor disappeared. There was no response at all. Looks like you're also a master who bullies the weak and fears the strong. Lu Yuan smiled and put away the Dragon Emperor draining spring spear. Not far away, Chihiro Snow had already rushed over. Obuchi, are you okay? Chihiro Snow came to Lu Yuan's side. Her beautiful eyes could not help but size up Lu Yuan with deep concern in her eyes. Of course I'm fine. Tang Chen can't hurt me. Lu Yuan pinched Chihiro Snow's face and said with a smile. Phew, that's good. Obuchi, thank you. Chihiro Snow heaved a sigh of relief. Thank me for what? Lu Yuan looked at Chihiro Snow in confusion. Thank you for killing Tang Chen. Grandpa told me that he had an opponent that he wanted to defeat for the rest of his life. That opponent was Tang Chen. Grandpa had never defeated Tang Chen once in his life. But today you, his grandson-in-law, helped him to win. So, I have to thank you, Qianrenshue said gently. Listening to Chihiro Snow's words, Lu Yuan waved his hand and said, It doesn't matter if I kill Tang Chen and Sendoryu. Don't associate me with that stinky old man. I don't owe him money. It has nothing to do with my grandfather. Does it have something to do with that Pasizi? I heard what you said. Does that Pasizi like you? Did you kill Tang Chen because of her? Chihiro Snow snorted and stared at Lu Yuan with a questioning look in his eyes. You think too much. Lu Yuan curled his lips and said lightly, You're so stubborn. If you have the ability, don't admit it for the rest of your life, Chihiro Snow said coldly. Lu Yuan glanced at Chihiro Snow and took the Shura's sacred sword in front of Chihiro Snow and said, Stop fooling around. I have something important to tell you. What is it? Seeing Lu Yuan so serious, Chihiro Snow also became serious. Because of the Shura inheritance, my sacred sword 9 tests is gone. Lu Yuan said calmly. What did you say? Chihiro Snow frowned slightly and asked, What exactly is going on? Lu Yuan sighed softly and explained the specific situation of the Shura divine power, dispersing the trident mark and the sacred sword 9 tests. This Shura god is too overbearing, Chihiro Snow said with some indignation. Who asked him to be the Shura god? One of the 5 divine kings of the god realm. Lu Yuan said lightly. Share, I don't mind losing the sacred sword 9 tests. It's just a small loss of rewards. However, I can't help you with the 9th test. Lu Yuan looked at Chihiro Snow and said softly, It's okay. I can rely on myself. You've been helping me along the way. Let me conquer the 9th test on my own. Furthermore, didn't you say that my affinity with angels is very high and that the 9th test won't be difficult? Chihiro Snow said with a smile. That's the only way. Lu Yuan sighed softly and stroked Qianrenshue's jade-like beautiful face. Elder Long, Elder Yi, Lu Yuan called out softly. Master. Long Xiaoyao and Yi Shishue replied at the same time. Tang Chen is already dead. However, the city of Massacre can't be without a master. Elder Yi, you'll stay behind to manage the city of Massacre and become the new king of Massacre. As for Elder Long, you'll be in charge of assisting Elder Yi. I'll give you the ability to use soul skills in the city of Massacre. Lu Yuan said plainly. He pointed with his finger, and 2 streaks of red light entered Yi Shishue and Long Xiaoyao's bodies. With these things, the 2 of them could unleash their full abilities in the city of Massacre. The king of Massacre could give the enforcers the ability to use soul skills. Now, Lu Yuan, who had inherited the Shura god's legacy, could do the same. Yes, master. We'll follow your orders. Long Xiaoyao and Yi Shishue bowed and said, Oh, you can go. Take Tang Chen's body with you and bury him properly. Lu Yuan waved his hand and said, Wait. Long Xiaoyao and Yi Shishue were about to move, but Chihiro Snow hurriedly stopped them. Obuchi, in Tang Chen's body, there should be I know. Before Chihiro Snow could finish speaking, he was interrupted by Lu Yuan. I know that there are soul bones in Tang Chen's body, and they must be full of soul bones. However, Tang Chen is a rare talent. There are not many people like him in the entire Douluo continent. He is an opponent, but an opponent worthy of respect. Although I wanted to kill him, and I've already killed him for various reasons. I still acknowledge him in my heart. I'll leave his body intact. This is the last respect I have for him." Lu Yuan's eyes brightened as he spoke in a deep voice. Tang Chen wasn't Tang Hao. When Tang Hao had turned into ashes, Lu Yuan didn't feel guilty about taking his soul bones. After all, Tang Chen wasn't a good person. However, Tang Chen was a truly indomitable figure. He was a real man who deserved the admiration of others. Lu Yuan also admired real heroes. In the past, he didn't hesitate to kill people and take their soul bones. That was because those people weren't very good. They couldn't be compared to Tang Chen. That's right, there was nothing to say about killing a hero like Tang Chen. After all, it was normal for them to fight to the death because they were on different sides. However, Lu Yuan could not bring himself to destroy Tang Chen's body after his death. Compared to this, it was just a few soul bones. He didn't need them. After all, some beliefs had to be upheld. Chapter 1049. After hearing Lu Yuan's words, Chihiro Snow fell silent for a moment. After a while, she smiled and said, "You're right. I'm the one who's at a disadvantage. It's not that you're at a disadvantage. It's just that you're used to being in a superior position. You're good at using everything you can, so you didn't think about this aspect. Furthermore, you don't want the soul bone for yourself. Aren't you thinking about the martial soul palace? My Shui is magnanimous and broad-minded. I know that." Lu Yuan hugged Chihiro Snow's waist and said with a smile. Chihiro Snow smiled. Lu Yuan's words made her very happy. "My Obuchi understands me the best," Chihiro Snow thought to herself. Her heart was filled with sweetness. However, Qian Rinchue's face did not show the slightest hint of sweetness in her heart. "You only know how to say nice things to make me happy." Chihiro Snow glanced at Lu Yuan and said coquettishly, "I'm not saying nice things. I'm speaking the truth." Lu Yuan moved closer to Chihiro Snow's red lips and said softly. His hot breath hit Chihiro Snow's face. "Elder Long and the others are still here." Chihiro Snow's red lips trembled. Her voice was soft and her face was slightly red. "It's okay," Lu Yuan said and kissed her. Chihiro Snow's face was slightly red. She closed her beautiful eyes and didn't refuse. The two of them became intimate again. "Where is this?" Chihiro Snow frowned and asked softly as she looked at the dark red scenery around her and the vast pool of blood below her. "This is Hell's Path, the place where the first trial of Azura takes place. If you pass it, you'll get the Killer God domain. Back then, Nana and I passed through here and obtained the God of Death domain." Lu Yuan said softly as he held Chihiro Snow's hand and walked along the long and narrow Hell Road. "So this is Hell's Road?" Chihiro Snow's eyes flashed with a hint of curiosity, and his pair of big golden eyes kept looking around. However, her complexion was not very good. As the successor of the angel god, she was very displeased with Hell Road, a place densely filled with evil and dark aura. "Obuchi, I don't like it here," Chihiro Snow said. "I know. It's because this place is tainted by the Rakshasa god's aura. It's dark and evil. Naturally, you wouldn't like it. I'm here for the same reason. Now that Senior Yishishue has become the king of massacre, she already has an evil martial soul. If we don't remove the Rakshasa god's divine sense from the city of massacre, I'm afraid that she will affect Senior Yishishue." Lu Yuan's gaze was faint. His worries were not unfounded. Yishishue was able to cultivate to become an ultimate Douluo on her own. Her talent was definitely enough for her to take the Rakshasa god's test. If the Rakshasa god took a fancy to her and played some tricks on her, it would be troublesome. Long Xiaoyao had finally reunited with Yishishue. Lu Yuan did not want any more problems to arise between them. "So that's the case." Chihiro Snow nodded and suddenly understood. She was wondering why Lu Yuan would bring her to Hell Road for no reason. Lu Yuan squeezed Chihiro Snow's small hand. His eyes shone brightly as he scanned his surroundings. There was an evil aura everywhere on Hell Road. Some places were thick, while others were thin. It was not easy to find a Rakshasa god's hiding place. Lu Yuan held Chihiro Snow's hand as they walked forward. Half a day passed, but they still did not find anything. Where is it? Lu Yuan's gaze flickered as he pondered in his heart. Chihiro Snow furrowed her beautiful brows. They had already reached the end of Hell Road. There was a sea of blood in front of them. The thick smell of blood made Chihiro Snow very unhappy. However, she suppressed her unhappiness as she looked at Lu Yuan's furrowed brows and pondered. She consoled him. Don't be anxious. Let's search slowly. Perhaps there are some places that we have overlooked. Some places that we have overlooked? Lu Yuan's mind flashed, and he suddenly laughed. He hugged Qianren Xue and kissed her fiercely. He smiled and said, "Thank you for reminding me, Xue. I've been searching above Hell's Road, but I subconsciously neglected the dirty blood sea below. Now that I think about it, the Rakshasa's divine consciousness must be hiding in the blood sea." The polychoria was so sharp that it was impossible for him to miss any place that he had searched. Then, in the entire Hell Road, there was only the sea of blood that he had not searched. The sea of blood was dirty and smelly and contained toxins. Ordinary people would never think of searching here. Thinking about it, it was normal for the Rakshasa god's consciousness to be hiding here. Thinking of this, Lu Yuan waved his hand, and the sea of blood in front of him began to surge. With Lu Yuan as the center, the sea of blood began to disperse to both sides, revealing the scene at the bottom of the sea. Since the sea of blood was formed by blood, it was not much different from a real sea. With Lu Yuan's ability to control water, he could easily control the blood in the sea of blood. Found it. Lu Yuan's eyes narrowed. At the place where the sea of blood separated, there was a faint spatial fluctuation. If there was the sea of blood blocking it before, it would be difficult to find it. But now that there was no obstruction, no matter how subtle the spatial fluctuation was, it could not escape Lu Yuan's eyes. Let's go share. Lu Yuan's mind moved. He pulled Chihiro Snow's little hand and rushed towards the place where the spatial fluctuation was. Open for me. Lu Yuan grabbed with one hand and tore a hole in the spatial barrier. He pulled Chihiro Snow and went in. At the same time, in a tall temple in the divine realm. This kid actually found this place. The Azura god, who was resting with his eyes closed, suddenly opened his eyes. There was a trace of surprise in his eyes. He waved his hand, and an image appeared in front of the Azura god. The two people in the image were Lu Yuan and Chihiro Snow. Good kid, good skill. The Azura god smiled. I finally found a reliable successor. I didn't expect you to find this place. It seems that the Rakshasa deity's divine consciousness is going to suffer. The Azura god muttered softly, with admiration in his eyes. If you really destroy the Rakshasa deity's divine consciousness, then I have a reward for you. When I killed a pure-blooded Tautai in the lower realm, there seemed to be a skull. It depends on whether you can get it or not. The Azura god's eyes flashed with interest. The Rakshasa deity's divine consciousness deliberately catered to his inheritance. He naturally knew, but he did not care. If the successor could get rid of the Rakshasa deity's interference, then they would naturally pass the test and be qualified to obtain his deity position. If they could not pass, then they could only blame themselves. He, the Azura god, did not want trash. And if someone like Lu Yuan could not only get rid of the divine consciousness's interference, but also take the initiative to destroy the Rakshasa deity's divine consciousness, then his reward would naturally not be stingy. He was the Azura god, one of the 5 divine kings. Chapter 1050. Out of the 9 tests of Azura, passing the Hell Road is the first test. Raising the Azura domain to the 4th stage and cultivating the power of Azura is the second test. Defeating Tang Chun and obtaining the Azura inheritance is the 3rd test. Finding the Azura shrine is the 4th test. Killing Rakshasa's divine sense is your 5th test. Kid, don't let me down. Take over this god position as soon as possible. This god is bored to death in the god realm. I can't be bothered to stay in this godforsaken place any longer. Azura God looked at Lu Yuan in the image and couldn't help but say, "Eh." Suddenly, Azura God's eyes narrowed, and he raised his eyebrows slightly. He couldn't help but let out a soft cry. In the image, Lu Yuan raised his head. The two of them seemed to be looking at each other across the vast void. He actually discovered this god. What sharp senses! This is getting more and more interesting. Azura God's eyes flickered and the corners of his mouth couldn't help but curl up slightly. In the unknown space at the bottom of the Blood Sea, Lu Yuan retracted his eyes. Being monitored again, Lu Yuan's eyes revealed a trace of coldness. He couldn't help but clench his fists tightly. This feeling of being monitored at any time and place was really disgusting. Only Azura God would dare to monitor me after knowing that I'm a massacre city. Lu Yuan's mind spun as he analyzed in his heart. He had obtained the Azura God's inheritance. Azura God would definitely pay closer attention to him. Azura God King, who had the highest attack power among the 5 God Kings of the God Realm, had to be guarded against. Seems like I have to be more careful in the future. Lu Yuan secretly thought in his heart. Obuchi, what's wrong? Did something happen? Seeing the coldness in Lu Yuan's eyes, Chihiro Snow asked with concern. Looking at Chihiro Snow's anxious look, Lu Yuan smiled and gently stroked her long golden hair. Nothing, don't worry. Really? Chihiro Snow's eyes flashed with suspicion. Obuchi, if you're unhappy, tell me. I'll share it with you. Chihiro Snow said earnestly. Don't worry, it's really fine, Lu Yuan said softly. Lu Yuan was not prepared to tell Chihiro Snow about the matter with the God Realm. She was still too weak to be of any help. Telling her now would only make her worry for no reason. Let's go and see what's inside, Lu Yuan said softly, holding Chihiro Snow's little hand as they continued forward. It was still a familiar scene. The stench of blood and the evil aura filled the air. The only difference was that the evil aura was thicker. With such a strong evil aura, it seems that the Rakshasa divine consciousness is indeed hiding here, Lu Yuan said faintly. Obuchi, be careful. The Rakshasa divine consciousness is not so easy to deal with, Chihiro Snow reminded. Don't worry, Cher. Unless the Rakshasa deity comes in person, a mere divine consciousness can't do anything to me. Have you forgotten how I destroyed the divine consciousness in Dong Air's body? Lu Yuan said with a smile. Hearing Lu Yuan's words, Chihiro Snow thought of how Lu Yuan had used the god-slaying spear to kill the Rakshasa deity Shadow. Only then did she feel completely relieved. Since the Rakshasa deity Shadow could not do anything to Lu Yuan, then the Rakshasa divine consciousness should be the same now. After walking for a while, a tall temple appeared in front of the two. The temple was blood-red in color, and there were white skeletons in front of the temple, giving off an extremely evil feeling. However, a terrifying, murderous aura could be felt among the evil. This can't be the Azura deity's temple, right? Lu Yuan said with some surprise. How can the Azura deity's temple be so dark and evil? Could it be the influence of the Rakshasa deity? Chihiro Snow asked. That must be it. Lu Yuan blinked and said, Let's go in and take a look. The Rakshasa divine consciousness should be in this temple, but you have to be careful when you go in. If there's anything wrong, hide behind me. I know, Chihiro Snow said softly. Stepping over the white skeletons, Lu Yuan and Chihiro Snow stepped onto the steps of the temple. The steps were still blood-red, as if they were condensed from blood. Chihiro Snow's brows were constantly furrowed. Everything here made her instinctively disgusted. The angelic holy light faintly appeared on her body, and the power of purification flowed around her body. The golden light was particularly conspicuous in such an evil environment. Lu Yuan was fine with it. Such a place was nothing to him. His tolerance was much stronger than Chihiro Snow's. Stepping into the temple, a tall statue directly came into view. This statue was 100 meters tall, wearing blood-red armor, and holding a blood-red long sword in its hand. The tip of the sword was pointed to the ground, and its two hands were on the hilt. The whole statue looked exceptionally majestic exuding a terrifying, murderous aura. The only thing that was not beautiful was that there was a conspicuous black spot on the statue's forehead where the Asura mark was. It was the existence of this black spot that made the whole statue exude an indescribable evil. "I've finally found you, Rakshasa," Lu Yuan shouted coldly, and there was a murderous intent in his eyes. With a thought, the tyrannical Asura divine power burst out from the Asura mark between his eyebrows. A red light shot into the statue's forehead, and the pure and magnificent murderous aura directly forced the Rakshasa deity's divine sense out. "It's you again, you stinking brat." The Rakshasa deity's divine sense floated out of the Asura statue, wearing a pale green divine outfit and looking at Lu Yuan with resentment. Back then, it was Lu Yuan who removed her inheritance from Bibidon's body. He was the most suitable inheritor she had chosen with great difficulty. Now, this stinking brat had come to ruin her good thing again. The Rakshasa deity's resentment towards Lu Yuan had reached the extreme. "You actually obtained the Asura inheritance." The Rakshasa deity's divine sense saw the Asura mark between Lu Yuan's eyebrows and couldn't help but tremble. Back then, she had schemed so hard to make Tang Chun lose his way, and now there was a new inheritor? Moreover, it was this stinking brat who had a great enmity with her. The Rakshasa deity's divine sense suddenly became angry. This world will never allow another Asura deity to appear. The Rakshasa deity's divine sense looked at Lu Yuan with resentment, and murderous intent overflowed from her body. Asura heavenly Ku Rakshasa, she would never allow her future inheritor to live in the shadow of the Asura deity. "You want to kill me?" Hearing the words of the Rakshasa deity's divine sense, Lu Yuan first smiled, and then his eyes became cold. "It just so happens that I want to kill you too. I've always remembered what you did to Dong Air. It's far from enough to destroy a shadow of you. I want to destroy your divine sense as well, and then I'll destroy your real body in the future. Only then can I eliminate the hatred in my heart." "Rakshasa die," Lu Yuan shouted, and a bloody light flashed in his right hand. The supra-divine weapon, the Asura sacred sword, appeared in his hand. A terrifying, murderous aura spread out in an instant. Chapter 1051. Since he had obtained the supra-divine weapon, the Asura sacred sword, Lu Yuan naturally wanted to test its power. He wanted to see how powerful the Asura god's weapon was. Moreover, the Asura divine power was a natural counter to the Rakshasa divine power. It would be much easier to use the Asura sacred sword to deal with a Rakshasa deity. Of course, the most important thing was that the Asura god was watching. He could still feel the feeling of being watched, so it was best not to expose things like the clear chi divine power. In this way, using the Asura sacred sword and the Asura divine power was definitely Lu Yuan's best choice at the moment. Asura sacred sword. The Rakshasa deity's expression became ugly. She didn't expect Lu Yuan to get the recognition of the Asura sacred sword at the same time as he obtained the Asura inheritance. This was one of the few super-divine weapons in the God realm. It was very powerful. This kid was already difficult to deal with. Now that he had the Asura sacred sword, it would be even more difficult to deal with. "Take this, Rakshasa!" Lu Yuan shouted. The Asura sacred sword in his hand directly slashed towards the Rakshasa deity. A terrifying, murderous aura gushed out like a tide. The Asura sacred sword bloomed with a blood-red light. The sharp sword light penetrated the body with an unparalleled destructive power. Lu Yuan's sword didn't have a gorgeous and exaggerated sword light that could easily reach hundreds or thousands of meters. Instead, he condensed all his power on the Asura sacred sword itself. With the attack power of the Asura sacred sword, the power of this sword was enough to compete with a second-tier god. Sensing the power of the Asura sacred sword, the Rakshasa deity's expression changed. She was just a divine consciousness. The power she could unleash was extremely limited. It was more than enough to deal with an ultimate Douluo like Tang Chun. However, It was quite difficult for Lu Yuan, who could fight against a second-tier god. The Rakshasa deity's figure flashed and dodged Lu Yuan's sword. Her figure flashed and rushed towards Chihiro Snow. Since she couldn't win, she planned to take a hostage first. Seeing the Rakshasa deity pouncing towards him, Chihiro Snow's expression changed. Instinctively, the eight-winged angel martial soul directly attached to his body. Yellow, purple, purple, black, black, red, and red soul rings shone brightly. At the same time, light flashed in Qianrenchue's hand. Holy golden light sprinkled down, and the angelic holy sword appeared. Qianrenchue swung her angelic holy sword across the sky. Seeing the angelic holy sword close to his body, Rakshas's divine sense instinctively took a step back. The angelic sacred sword was a master god weapon and contained the power of holiness and light. It was also quite effective against the Rakshasa god. Although Qianrenchue's spirit power was low, the angelic holy sword was not to be trifled with. Even a Rakshas's spiritual sense would be injured after being struck by it. But in the time it took to retreat, Lu Yuan immediately caught up. Seeing that the Rakshasa deity wanted to take Chihiro Snow as a hostage, a trace of crazy killing intent flashed in his eyes. The Azura sacred sword slashed down fiercely. The sword came extremely fast. It happened when the Rakshasa deity retreated. She had no time to dodge. The Rakshasa deity's hands flashed, and two black scythes appeared in her hands. They were the Rakshasa deity's Rakshasa demonic scythes, but they were not real. They were just condensed from energy. She brandished her two sickles to block the Azura sacred sword that was slashing towards her. A mantis trying to stop a chariot. Lu Yuan muttered softly, and the Azura sacred sword slashed directly on the two scythes. The blood-red sword light directly cut the two scythes and slashed the Rakshasa deity's body. The terrifying and overbearing Azura divine power continued to flow from the Azura sacred sword into the Rakshasa deity's body, madly destroying it. The Rakshasa deity let out a shrill scream on the spot. The Azura divine power had a great restraining effect on the Rakshasa deity, being slashed by the Azura sacred sword, not to mention the Rakshasa deity's body. Even if it was her original body, she would definitely die. You want to kill me with your little strength? You're so weak. Lu Yuan's lips curled into a disdainful smile. The Azura sacred sword once again erupted with a strong energy fluctuation, directly cutting the Rakshasa deity's body in half. Suddenly, the Rakshasa deity's body completely collapsed into nothingness. At the moment when the Rakshasa deity's body collapsed, a cold and majestic voice sounded in Lu Yuan's mind. The fifth test of the Azura 9 tests has been completed. Exterminating the Rakshasa deity's consciousness. Reward: Taoye skull. Azura affinity increased by 15%. Current total affinity is 65%. The sixth test of the Azura test has been issued. Eliminate evil. Destroy the Holy Ghost sect. Kill the Holy Ghost sect's leader. Time limit: 2 years. The fifth test of the Azura test? Since when did I complete the fifth test? Lu Yuan blinked his eyes in confusion. Other than the first test of the Hell's Path, he didn't seem to have taken any of the Azura tests. So, he was already in the fifth test? Also, his Azura affinity had reached 65%. This value of affinity was quite high. Chihiro Snow only had 55% in the fifth test. If he were to proceed to the ninth test, his affinity would definitely exceed 100%. However, the ninth test was just a thought. He wouldn't inherit the Azura deity position. His goal was to use the Azura inheritance to comprehend the power of order and use it to comprehend the clear air god seed. No, if I become an Azura deity first, then create my own law deity position, it wouldn't be too much of a delay. Lu Yuan touched his chin and thought to himself. If he obtained the Azura deity position first, then the Azura deity without the Azura deity position would definitely have a drop in strength. The strength of the divine world would also decrease, and it would be easier to fight. This idea seems good. Lu Yuan thought to himself. If there weren't any unforeseen circumstances, he could first inherit an Azure deity position to play with. Conservatively speaking, with his current strength, when he inherited the Azure deity position, even if he had just become a god, he wouldn't be too far off from a god king. Once he used the god-slaying spear, he could even kill a god king. This seems to be a path to become stronger. Forget it, I'll walk both paths. I'll focus on comprehending the clear air god seed and complete the Azure test at the same time. Thinking about it this way is quite good. Lu Yuan chuckled to himself. With a turn of his mind, Lu Yuan's thoughts returned. A dim light flew out from the Azure shrine and stopped in front of him. Lu Yuan reached out his hand and caught it. The dim light revealed its true appearance. It was a dark gold skull, and the skull was filled with boundless energy. The skull emitted a ferocious aura, faintly revealing an extremely powerful devouring power. What surprised Lu Yuan even more was that this skull actually gave him a sense of closeness. The skull of a Tao Tai, it really came from a Tao Tai. Looking at the familiar aura from the skull, this Tao Tai should be a god-level existence. I didn't expect the Azure deity to have such a collection. Lu Yuan looked at the skull of a Tao Tai in his hand with great interest. In this way, he also had the skull. In addition to the right leg bone of the Dragon King of Light, he seemed to only be missing the torso bone. Chapter 1052. He also knew where to find a torso bone that was suitable for him, and its quality was also extremely high. I'm finally about to gather all 6 main soul bones. It's really not easy. Lu Yuan couldn't help but sigh softly. It was extremely difficult to gather a set of soul bones that were all god-ranked and above. However, he was finally about to complete it. Once the main soul bones are completed, I can try to form my own godly equipment. With so many high-quality soul bones, my godly equipment will definitely be unimaginably powerful. Lu Yuan spoke softly, and there was a look of anticipation in his eyes. He was very curious about how frightening his godly equipment would be when he formed it. 6 main soul bones for external soul bones, and all of them were god-ranked. There were even a few Class 1 godly bones among them. Such a combination could only be described as extravagant. Once a godly equipment was formed, it was impossible for it to be weak if its quality wasn't high. As he thought of this, Lu Yuan couldn't help but curl the corner of his mouth into a smile. The 6th test is to destroy the Holy Ghost Church and kill the Holy Ghost Church's leader. Speaking of which, it's time to destroy the Holy Ghost Church after I establish my empire. These rats have been hiding in the dark for so long, and I've long been annoyed by them. Lu Yuan's tone was very low, and there was a piercingly cold, murderous aura. He had always hated evil soul masters. Now that the continent had been unified, there were no more internal problems. It was time for him to shift his attention to the outside world. The Holy Ghost Church had been eyeing the Douluo continent covetously, and they were constantly trying to invade it. They even killed the innocent and did all sorts of evil things. This time, he could uproot them completely. Furthermore, he could take this opportunity to unify the Sun-Moon continent as well. Since the 2 continents were going to collide in the future, there would definitely be a war. He might as well unify the 2 continents first. According to the original plot, the Sun-Moon continent had invaded the Douluo continent. However, it was naturally the other way around this time. After all, the Martial Soul Palace and the Dragon King Hall weren't to be trifled with, and Lu Yuan wasn't to be trifled with either. Since they were going to establish a unified empire, they might as well go big. Annexing an entire continent sounded very interesting. As Lu Yuan was thinking, Chihiro Snow looked straight at him. Seeing Lu Yuan frowning, pondering, and laughing, her beautiful eyes couldn't help but blink slightly. What was this man thinking? Obuchi, Chihiro Snow called out softly. Lu Yuan did not respond. Obuchi. This time, Chihiro Snow raised his voice. Lu Yuan woke up from his contemplation and looked at Chihiro Snow in confusion. What's wrong, Cher? I wanted to ask you the same thing. What are you thinking about? Chihiro Snow asked. Nothing much. I'm just thinking about the Azura's test. Lu Yuan chuckled and explained the contents of the Azura's sixth test. Destroy the Holy Ghost Church? This is indeed something that we have to do now. After we return from the extreme north, we can establish our empire and recuperate for a while. Then, we can send troops to attack the Holy Ghost Church. These evil soul masters should have been killed long ago. Now, the time is ripe. Chihiro Snow's pretty face was ferocious, and there was a trace of killing intent in her voice. That's right. When we return, we'll make preparations. When the time comes, we'll definitely kill them all. Lu Yuan smiled and said, Okay. Chihiro Snow nodded, and her eyes were filled with killing intent. Lu Yuan hated evil soul masters, and she was no exception. After all, she had almost been separated from Lu Yuan because of evil soul masters in the dense fog forest. She had always remembered this grudge in her heart, and had never forgotten it. The northern wind whistled, and snowflakes drifted down from the sky. Chihiro Snow extended her jade-like hand, and the sparkling snowflakes landed on her tender, snow-white hand. They seemed very small and cute. Chihiro Snow extended her jade-like finger and tapped it gently, and a beautiful smile appeared on her face. Obuchi, I really like this place. I feel very close to it from the bottom of my heart. Chihiro Snow's beautiful golden eyes looked at Lu Yuan, and there was a smile in her eyes. It's good that you like it. Lu Yuan caressed Chihiro Snow's face, and there was a gentle smile on his face. He hadn't seen Chihiro Snow so relaxed and happy in a long time. It was rare for Chihiro Snow to be so happy today, and he was also very happy in his heart. Shua, is an innate, pure, and divine fetus. Returning to the extreme north is like returning home. It's no wonder she's so happy. Lu Yuan thought to himself. Chihiro Snow cupped her jade-like hand and gently blew, and the snowflakes lying on her hand suddenly fluttered. She looked at the fluttering snowflakes, and there was a trace of innocence in her smile. Lu Yuan's heart moved, and he gently embraced her. Chihiro Snow turned around and smiled, and a pair of jade-like arms directly wrapped around Lu Yuan's neck. Obuchi! Chihiro Snow looked into Lu Yuan's eyes, and there was tenderness in her eyes. Lu Yuan smiled and gently kissed her red lips. Feeling the residual warmth on her red lips, Chihiro Snow's eyes became even more gentle. Obuchi, you're really getting stronger and stronger. Chihiro Snow gazed at Lu Yuan and couldn't help but sigh softly. Isn't it good that I'm getting stronger and stronger? Lu Yuan asked with a smile. Yes, I feel very safe by your side. Chihiro Snow said tenderly. Lu Yuan smiled faintly and lowered his forehead slightly, touching Chihiro Snow's forehead. That Taochia soul bone brought you a lot of benefits, right? Chihiro Snow asked with a smile. It did bring me a lot of benefits. Lu Yuan blinked his eyes and said, That Taochia's skull came from the earth-type soul beast, Tao Tai, and it's not a soul beast that excels in spiritual power. However, it's a god-tier soul beast, and it can still greatly increase one's spiritual power. After absorbing the Tao Ye's soul bone, my spiritual power has greatly increased, and now it's on par with my physique. Due to the increase in my spiritual power, my dual pupils have awakened a new skill, Dual Pupils Annihilation Ray. Dual Pupils Annihilation Ray, a destructive type of offensive skill. Chihiro Snow's small mouth opened slightly, and the hot air she exhaled hit Lu Yuan's face. Yes, but it's a little more terrifying than normal destructive power. This is a complete annihilation, directly turning into nothingness. Under the annihilation, nothing will exist. Lu Yuan said with a smile. SSS amazing. Chihiro Snow's red lips opened slightly, and said with a little surprise. Lu Yuan smiled and didn't comment. The power of the Dual Pupils Annihilation Ray wasn't below the true Dragon Claw, and was even more tyrannical and impossible to guard against. The dual pupils were indeed extraordinary. Although it was difficult to improve, once there was a breakthrough, it would definitely awaken an extremely terrifying skill. If you improve one more step, just you and I alone can take on the divine world. Lu Yuan's dual pupils blinked, and he muttered to himself in his heart, "All right, Obuchi, when you're talking about the Taoye soul bone just now, you seem to have left something unsaid. Could it be that it has other functions?" Chihiro Snow remembered that Lu Yuan said first when he introduced it. Since there was a first, then there must be a second. Chapter 1053. It definitely has other functions. After all, this is a god-tier Taoye skull, and it has several skills. However, what makes me most happy is one of its characteristics. With this characteristic, even if the Taoye skull isn't from a spiritual type soul beast, it's still better than them. What characteristic? Chihiro Snow asked. Devour. Lu Yuan laughed softly. Devour? Chihiro Snow's beautiful eyebrows raised slightly as she asked, "Does this characteristic have any specific effects?" Devour. This devour characteristic is what I'm most satisfied with. It can devour other skulls to strengthen itself. In other words, even if I devour the Taoye skull, when I encounter a high-quality skull in the future, I can still use the devour characteristic to devour that skull and use it to improve the quality of the Taoye skull. At the same time, I can still retain the characteristics of that skull. This ability is simply heaven-defying. The skull can evolve. Are you afraid? Lu Yuan said with a smile. Hearing this, Chihiro Snow's eyes widened, and there was a hint of astonishment in her golden eyes. She had never heard of such a skull. It could actually devour other skulls to improve itself. Terrifying. What a perverted ability. Chihiro Snow's red lips opened slightly, and there was a hint of shock in her voice. It's all right. It sounds scary, but there are actually limitations. The higher the quality of the skull, the more effort it takes to devour it. The lower the quality of the skull, the less effective it is to devour it. Furthermore, the Taoye skull can't devour skulls that exceed the quality of the Taoye skull. It's not as powerful as you think. Lu Yuan added, "It's normal to have limitations. Wouldn't it be heaven-defying if there were no limitations?" Chihiro Snow rolled her eyes at Lu Yuan. This guy is still pretending to be innocent after taking advantage of it? Your Taoye skull is already a god-tier soul bone now. If it absorbs a few more god-tier skulls of the same level, I'm afraid it will evolve to an extremely terrifying level. Wouldn't it be able to devour those that it couldn't devour before after evolving? The amazing thing is its ability to grow. Chihiro Snow sighed. Indeed, but high-quality skulls are hard to find. It depends on luck. However, to be honest, it's a great fortune to be able to obtain such a skull, Lu Yuan said with a smile. Hearing this, Qianren Xue could not help but glare at Lu Yuan. This guy was showing off again. Lu Yuan smiled when he saw the look in Qianren Xue's eyes. He pecked her red lips again and said, "Let's continue our journey." In, Qianren Xue nodded and replied softly. The far north was huge. Lu Yuan held Qianren Xue's hand and walked around the far north. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. The two extreme Zuini ways, the Taoyes is the heavens and the Taotai, says snowflakes and storms were the most common in the extreme north. The deeper they went, the thicker the snow became. The extreme north's environment was bitter and cold, and it also created many special ice-type soul beasts. These soul beasts were extremely difficult to find in the outside world. Along the way, Lu Yuan discovered many rare soul beasts. For example, the Tai-Tan Snow Devil, the Hellfrost soul-devouring spider, and the ice-scaled beast. These soul beasts could only be found in the extreme north. As the two of them continued, they even encountered a 100,000-year soul beast. It was an icy jade-plumed bird emperor that was more than 10 meters long. Although it wasn't of the ultimate ice attribute, it was still very strong. In fact, even the sky azure bull python might not be able to defeat it. Chihiro Snow was a little tempted when he saw this soul beast. However, Lu Yuan didn't make a move. He wouldn't kill soul beasts without a reason. He only made a mental note to try and see if he could turn this soul beast into a spirit when he obtained the spirit soul method. After all, Chihiro Snow's second martial soul was of the ice attribute. It was quite compatible with this soul beast. Turning it into a spirit soul would be beneficial to both parties. Lu Yuan was confident that he could complete this task. The icy jade-plume bird emperor examined Lu Yuan and Tang Wulin. However, it wasn't very hostile. When it saw that the two of them didn't provoke it, it flew away on its own. During the Age of Battle 1, the relationship between humans and soul beasts wasn't as tense as it was in the future. This was especially true in places like the extreme north. Very few people would come here to hunt soul beasts apart from a few ice-type soul masters who weren't afraid of death. Even those ice-type soul masters didn't dare to venture too deep into the extreme north. This was because of the special geographical environment. To ordinary soul masters, the extreme north was even more terrifying than the Great Stardow Forest. As a result, the soul beasts of the extreme north weren't very prejudiced against humans. As the two of them ventured deeper into the extreme north, the temperature became lower and lower. However, Lu Yuan and Chihiro Snow were still wearing thin clothes. Right now, Lu Yuan was already immune to both heat and cold. He could even control ultimate ice. Such low temperatures didn't pose any pressure to him at all. On the other hand, Chihiro Snow was born from a pure, divine embryo. After her origin was awakened, she loved low temperatures. Returning to this place was like returning home. She could only feel comfortable. As the two of them stepped on the snow, crunching sounds could be heard. This white world was very strange at first. However, they couldn't help but feel a little bored after staying here for a long time. Lu Yuan's polychoria swept around as he observed his surroundings. Suddenly, a ding sounded in his mind. The system's cold voice sounded. Ding. You have arrived at the check-in location. Sign-in begins. Sign-in will last for 12 hours. Have we reached the core region of the extreme north? Lu Yuan raised his eyebrows slightly. He and Chihiro Snow had finally reached the core region after walking for so long. But the check-in time is 12 hours. That's really a long time. Lu Yuan muttered to himself. In the past, it was at most 2 hours. This time, it was a little unexpected that it would take 12 hours. But 12 hours is fine. It's not a big deal, Lu Yuan said to himself. As Lu Yuan thought to himself, his polychoria swept around as he continued to lead Chihiro Snow forward. Suddenly, Lu Yuan's nose twitched. A faint smell of blood entered his nose. His body couldn't help but stop, and his polychoria flashed. What's wrong, Obuchi? Chihiro Snow was a little puzzled when he saw Lu Yuan stop. There's a situation. Lu Yuan's eyes narrowed slightly as he said faintly. Hearing this, Chihiro Snow's expression turned solemn. Light flashed in her right hand, and a gorgeous longsword shining with a sacred golden light appeared in her hand. It was the angel sword. Her polychoria swept around again and saw a green light shining under the snow more than 500 meters away from Lu Yuan and the others in the northeast corner. This green light was not conspicuous, and hiding under the snow was even more difficult to find. But unfortunately, Lu Yuan was not an ordinary person. His polychoria could see through all disguises. Chapter 1054. Therefore, no matter how well it hid, it couldn't hide from Lu Yuan's eyes. Found it, Lu Yuan muttered softly. He exchanged a look with Chihiro Snow, and the two of them nodded at the same time. They pretended not to care as they continued forward. Fortunately, they didn't discover me. A pair of orange-yellow eyes stared at Lu Yuan and Chihiro Snow through holes in the snow. Seeing that they didn't seem to have discovered it, a relieved voice could be heard. This voice was very clear and pleasant, but there was a tinge of pain in it, as if it was enduring something. Those damn fellows are truly heartless. They actually massacred so many people in the extreme north. Those two fellows are too strong. I only hope that the Snow Emperor is safe. It's a pity that I'm severely injured and can't take care of anything else. There was a strong sense of unwillingness and resentment in its voice. How about I help you treat your injuries? A clear voice could be heard. The The snow started to dance, and two figures appeared where they were. What a beautiful scorpion! Chihiro Snow was very surprised. She had seen many scorpion-type soul beasts, but it was her first time seeing such a beautiful scorpion. The scorpion in front of her was completely emerald green. There were no flaws, and the armor on its body was as pure as crystal. Its two big yellow eyes were shining brightly. It was extremely quick-witted. Its pair of huge scorpion claws were covered with transparent hexagonal scales. They were sparkling and translucent like diamonds, refracting rainbow-colored light in the air. The scorpion tail behind it was slender and long. It had a total of 6 segments, and there was a sharp hook at the tip of the tail that flickered with a dazzling cold light. The second of the 3 heavenly kings of the extreme north, the Ice Jade Empress Scorpion. She has a cultivation of 380,000 years. Her title is the Ice Empress. I didn't expect to meet you right after entering the core region. What a good fate. Lu Yuan smiled as he spoke. What? She's the Ice Empress? The Ice Empress who controls ultimate ice? Chihiro Snow opened her cherry lips and asked in surprise. That's right. Lu Yuan nodded with a smile. His luck was pretty good to meet the Ice Empress as soon as he arrived at the core region. You actually know this emperor? The Ice Empress was curious at first, but then she seemed to have thought of something and asked, How did you find me? Didn't you guys leave? Even if you leave, you could still come back. You hid well, but unfortunately, you can't hide from my eyes, Lu Yuan said faintly. Hearing Lu Yuan's words, the Ice Emperor's big yellow eyes flickered with anger. Since I can't hide, then I'll take you all down with me. The Ice Empress shouted as she spat out a jade-green pillar of light. The surrounding temperature instantly dropped. Ultimate ice. The temperature within this pillar of light had already reached the level of ultimate ice. Lu Yuan stepped in front of Chihiro Snow and extended his right index finger. With a light tap, the jade-green pillar of light instantly dissipated into nothingness. Suddenly, Lu Yuan's gaze focused. He grabbed at the air and grabbed the scorpion tail that was attacking him from the dark. The sharp tail hook above Lu Yuan's palm radiated a wretched green light. You're really cunning. Speaking of which, we didn't offend you, right? Why are you so ruthless? Lu Yuan said plainly as he grabbed the Ice Empress scorpion tail. Let go of my tail. The Ice Empress' clear and pleasant voice carried a tinge of embarrassment and anger as she reprimanded Lu Yuan. The tail was the most sensitive part of a scorpion's body. Being grabbed by Lu Yuan, the Ice Empress was both embarrassed and furious. She struggled with all her might, but it was useless. Lu Yuan was just grabbing her lightly, and she was like a towering mountain that couldn't be moved. I'm asking you a question. Lu Yuan swung the scorpion tail gently, and the Ice Empress' 4-meter-long body fell to the ground. She was dizzy from the fall. How dare you throw me? The Ice Empress reprimanded. Her heart was filled with anger. No one had ever treated her like this before. So what? You attacked us for no reason, and you still think you're in the right? Lu Yuan pursed his lips. He pulled the Ice Empress' tail and made her come into close contact with the ground again. You despicable humans should be killed. You've massacred so wantonly in the extreme north. You'll get your retribution. The Ice Empress shouted. Massacred? Lu Yuan stopped what he was doing. He only heard the Ice Empress mention that she was injured, but he didn't hear the first part. Now that he heard it, he had a bad feeling. Something might have happened in the extreme north. What's going on? Lu Yuan asked the Ice Empress. You're still pretending. You've massacred soul beasts in the extreme north and collected their corpses and blood. I'll kill all of you despicable humans. The Ice Empress glared at Lu Yuan. There was an indescribable fury in her eyes. After hearing what the Ice Empress said, Lu Yuan and Chihiro Snow looked at each other. The two of them couldn't help but say at the same time, Evil Soul Masters. They had seen such a familiar scene before. It was in the dense fog forest. Evil Soul Masters had massacred soul beasts and built the Blood Moon altar. They had tried to open a spatial gate to receive the Holy Ghost Church's evil Soul Master army. But that time, It was destroyed by Lu Yuan and Qian Renxue. Could it be that this time it was the northern ice field's turn? Yes, the extreme north's ice plains were deserted. No one had stepped into the core region before. Even if something big happened, no one in the outside world would be able to detect it. After all, even the Martial Soul Palace couldn't monitor the core region of the extreme north. What a good plan. However, the extreme north isn't like the dense fog forest. The Snow Emperor is here. The Snow Emperor in the extreme north can defeat an ordinary ultimate Douluo. However, the Holy Ghost Church still dares to come. It seems like they've sent someone important. Could the Holy Ghost Church's leader be here personally? Lu Yuan's eyes flashed. He immediately analyzed many things in his heart. If the Holy Ghost Church's leader is really here, perhaps we can take this opportunity to kill him. As he thought until here, a murderous intent flashed across Lu Yuan's eyes. What evil soul masters? What are you talking about? The Ice Empress asked plainly. I'm talking about the people who are massacring soul beasts in the extreme north. They're all evil soul masters. They cultivate using evil methods. They're the natural enemies of all soul masters. You've got the wrong person. We have nothing to do with those evil soul masters. Don't treat us as their accomplices, Lu Yuan explained. The Ice Empress stared straight at Lu Yuan and said fiercely, "Who knows if you're speaking the truth? You humans are all despicable. Especially you. You're the most despicable. I really want to eat you." What did you say? After hearing the Ice Empress' words, Chihiro Snow was enraged. He raised his angelic holy sword. Holy light scattered, carrying a noble and dignified aura. Chapter 1055. The Ice Empress wanted to eat Lu Yuan? How could she tolerate this? The angelic holy sword was directly above the Ice Empress' head. The sharp sword aura caused the Ice Empress to tremble. She felt a sense of impending death. If the sword pierced through, the scales she was so proud of would not be of much use. They would be completely penetrated. Furthermore, the sacred and dignified aura of the sword made her tremble. This sword was definitely not an ordinary weapon. The feeling of superiority made her want to crawl. However, the Ice Empress was still the Ice Empress. She had her pride. As one of the 3 heavenly kings of the extreme north, she would not submit so easily. Kill me. Kill me if you can. You bunch of despicable humans. You will definitely receive retribution. The extreme north will punish you. The Ice Empress was still unyielding. Then die. Chihiro Snow raised her eyebrows. She was about to die, yet she still dared to put on airs in front of her, especially the man who said he wanted to eat her in front of her. Did he really think that she, Chihiro Snow, did not have a temper? Chihiro Snow raised the angelic holy sword and slashed downwards. A golden sword light shot out from her body, bringing with it an extremely dense light energy. The Ice Empress' yellow eyes couldn't help but shrink. She felt a strong sense of death in her heart. She gently closed her eyes and felt a strong sense of unwillingness in her heart. Was she going to die here just like that? She had not seen the Snow Emperor for the last time. She did not know how the Snow Emperor was doing. She hoped that the Snow Emperor could successfully escape. The Ice Empress thought to herself. Following that, she emptied her mind and silently waited for death to come. However, the terrifying golden sword light did not land on her body. The Ice Empress waited for a long time, but she did not feel any pain. She could not help but open her eyes. The angelic holy sword stopped an inch above her body. However, Chihiro Snow's hand was caught by Lu Yuan in time. "Obuchi, why are you stopping me?" Chihiro Snow looked at Lu Yuan in confusion. She was clearly helping Lu Yuan vent his anger. Why did Lu Yuan stop her? "Cher, don't forget why we're here. You can't kill the Ice Emperor," Lu Yuan reminded. Hearing this, Chihiro Snow was shocked. Yes, she was here for her second martial soul. The candidate that Lu Yuan had found for her second martial soul was the Snow Emperor. If it really didn't work out, she could choose the Ice Empress. There was a very important point in obtaining a second martial soul, and that was that the soul beast had to be willing to sacrifice it. It couldn't be forced. The Ice Monarch was the second most powerful person in the extreme northern icy plains and had a deep friendship with the Snow Emperor. If the Snow Emperor knew that they had killed the Ice Monarch, no matter how eloquent Lu Yuan was, the Snow Emperor would probably not be willing to sacrifice him. In that case, Chihiro Snow's second martial soul would be stranded. Therefore, the Ice Emperor really couldn't be killed. Consider yourself lucky. Chihiro Snow snorted and put away her angelic holy sword. Hearing Chihiro Snow's snort, the Ice Empress couldn't help but snort. Sundara? Who doesn't know how to beat Sundara? All right, stop fooling around. Ice Empress, you've misunderstood. We have no ill intentions towards you or the extreme northern icy plains. Lu Yuan said softly. I don't believe you. You humans are unreliable. The Ice Empress snorted and said. Then, are you reliable? Lu Yuan said indifferently. He released the bloodline of the five-clawed golden dragon king, and a terrifying bloodline pressure instantly spread. The bloodline of the five-clawed golden dragon king had a terrifying suppressive effect on all soul beasts on the Douluo continent. The Ice Empress was no exception. Her body suddenly sank, and there was a trace of disbelief in her big yellow eyes. Her entire body started to tremble, and she started to doubt her life as a scorpion. Was the guy in front of him really a human? That bloodline pressure made her lose all will to resist. Her only thought was to crawl and worship him. How could such a terrifying bloodline pressure appear on a human? No, this guy in front of her is definitely not a simple human. She had never felt such pressure before. If the angelic holy sword was said to contain the power of an angel, and the difference between a god and a mortal made the Ice Empress feel pressure from a life form, then Lu Yuan's pressure came from the depths of his bloodline. It was the pressure of a higher-ranked being against a lower-ranked being. This was an instinctive pressure, and it didn't have much to do with one's strength. Could it be that this fellow isn't a human, but a high-level soul beast in human form? The Ice Empress looked at Lu Yuan. The more she thought about it, the more she felt that it made sense. Because of what had happened not too long ago, she hated humans, but she didn't hate soul beasts. Moreover, Lu Yuan's aura was so overbearing that it could not help but want to submit to him. Are you reliable? Lu Yuan asked plainly. Reliable, reliable. The Ice Empress looked at Lu Yuan with her big yellow eyes and said crisply, Can you remove your pressure? I can't breathe. Lu Yuan glanced at the Ice Empress before he slowly removed his pressure. After the pressure was removed, the Ice Empress felt a lot more relaxed. That terrifying pressure, just now, was too frightening. Can you let go of my tail? The Ice Empress continued. You have a lot of requests. Lu Yuan said plainly, but he still let go of the Ice Empress' scorpion tail. With his strength, he wasn't afraid that the Ice Empress would escape even if he let go of her tail. The Ice Empress took 2 steps back after her tail was released. She sized up Lu Yuan seriously and asked, You're not human, are you? You're a soul beast in human form? You're the one who's in human form. I'm human. Do you understand? Lu Yuan said in annoyance. The words soul beast in human form reminded him of some unpleasant memories. Di Tian seemed to have said that he was a golden dragon in human form. I don't believe you. You're definitely not a simple human. The bloodline in your body isn't something that an ordinary person can have. The Ice Empress said with certainty. Lu Yuan fell silent after the Ice Empress said that. He was indeed not a simple human. Obuchiyu? Chihiro Snow was shocked when she saw that Lu Yuan was silent. She had known Lu Yuan for so long. How could she not see that Lu Yuan was silently admitting to it? My situation is similar to yours. We're both not pure humans. You can barely be considered a sentient life form, but I also have a strong dragon bloodline. This dragon bloodline didn't come from my parents. It came from the Golden Dragon Clan, which is the highest level of the Dragon Clan. It's a golden dragon with an extremely pure bloodline. I have an inseparable fate with the Dragon Clan. That's why I know the Golden Eyes Black Dragon King, Di Tian. Lu Yuan explained. I see. Doesn't that mean that you also have a soul beast bloodline? Chihiro Snow looked at Lu Yuan strangely. Chapter 10:56. It was different from the bloodline inherited from one's parents. In this case, if it was passed down from generation to generation, even if one had the bloodline of a dragon, he would still be a pure human. Just like Long Xiaoyao, Lu Erlong, and the rest, those who possessed the martial soul of a dragon had a trace of dragon bloodline in their bodies. However, they were still pure humans. However, if one's bloodline was directly inherited from a soul beast, the situation would be different. That person wouldn't be considered a pure human, but a human with the bloodline of a soul beast. He would be considered a half-beast, half-human. For example, Tang San. He was born from the Blue-Silver Emperor and Tang Hao, and had both the bloodline of the Blue-Silver Emperor and the bloodline of a human. Lu Yuan's situation was even more complicated. His bloodline came from the second-generation Golden Dragon, but he was still a human after the system modified him. Lu Yuan didn't know what kind of human he was. However, it was absolutely correct to say that he wasn't a pure human. It was also absolutely correct to say that he had the bloodline of a soul beast. I do have the bloodline of a soul beast, Lu Yuan said. I knew it. The Ice Empress laughed. Her crisp voice was very pleasant. Chihiro Snow paused for a moment. She stared at Lu Yuan with her big eyes. Her gaze was deep. Share, I have the bloodline of a soul beast. You don't mind, right? Lu Yuan looked into Chihiro Snow's eyes and asked, What if I do? Chihiro Snow looked at Lu Yuan with a burning gaze and whispered, Actually, it's useless even if you mind. Even if you mind, I won't let you leave me. Lu Yuan stroked his chin and said with a smile, Rascal! Chihiro Snow glared at Lu Yuan. To be honest, why would she mind? Lu Yuan had the bloodline of a soul beast, and she wasn't a pure human. Why would she mind? What was there to mind? It was just a little funny. This fellow's shameless character had never changed. Hearing Chihiro Snow's words, Lu Yuan smiled faintly and couldn't help but hold Chihiro Snow's small hand. After knowing Chihiro Snow for so long, how could he not know this girl's proud personality? The moment this girl opened her mouth, Lu Yuan knew that she didn't mind at all. Ahem, you two be careful. I'm still here. The Ice Empress coughed and said. Lu Yuan finally let go of Chihiro Snow's hand and looked at the Ice Monarch. The Ice Monarch was indeed heavily injured. There were several hideous wounds on the transparent emerald scales on his body. Black gas surrounded the wounds, and fresh blood dripped from them. It was the smell of blood that had attracted Lu Yuan's attention. Otherwise, the Ice Empress wouldn't have been exposed so easily. You're seriously injured, Lu Yuan said faintly. When he mentioned her injuries, the Ice Empress's hatred and fury rose again. It's all because of the evil soul masters you mentioned. They were massacring people in the extreme north. I was so angry that I fought with them. In the end, I was heavily injured. If not for the Snow Emperor's timely arrival, I would have died. Oh yes, the Snow Emperor. The Snow Emperor is being attacked by 2 ultimate Douluo. I'm afraid she won't be able to hold on for long. You're so strong. Can you help us? The Ice Empress looked hopefully at Lu Yuan. For what she could sense, Lu Yuan's aura was much stronger than the Snow Emperor's. He had reached a level that even she was afraid of. Furthermore, he had subdued her in one move. He was definitely a top-tier expert. If Lu Yuan was willing to help, in addition to the Snow Emperor's abilities, the extreme north would definitely be able to survive this crisis. 2 ultimate Douluo? Lu Yuan furrowed his brow. According to Junia, the Holy Ghost Church only had 1 ultimate Douluo, the Holy Ghost Church's founder. Where did these 2 ultimate Douluo come from? However, when he thought about the gray pearl that he had obtained from Junia, a look of understanding flashed across Lu Yuan's eyes. The pearl was filled with depraved and evil divine power. From this, it could be seen that there was a god behind the Holy Ghost Church. If the evil god was behind them, it wouldn't be difficult to create 2 ultimate Douluo. Are you not willing to help us? Seeing that Lu Yuan was deep in thought, A look of disappointment flashed across the Ice Empress' eyes. Her voice was a little low. No, I'm happy to help. I've said it before. We're also enemies with evil soul masters. Lu Yuan said. Really? The Ice Empress was delighted when she heard this. Was Lu Yuan really willing to help them? Of course it's true. Lu Yuan chuckled. Then let's set off quickly. If we're late, I'm afraid the Snow Emperor will be in danger. The Ice Empress was a little anxious as she said. There's no hurry. Let's treat your injuries first. Otherwise, it'll be very bad for your injuries if we continue to travel long distances. Lu Yuan said gently. My injuries can't be treated. The black gas is very clingy, corrosive, and sticky. It's been preventing my wounds from healing. I've tried everything, but I can't get rid of it. The Ice Empress said. Don't worry, I have a way. Leave it to me. As he spoke, Lu Yuan casually pointed his finger. White light sprinkled down and landed on the Ice Monarch's body. The black gas around the Ice Monarch's wound was dispelled at a speed visible to the naked eye. Then, under the effect of the white light, the Ice Monarch's wound began to heal. After a few minutes, Lu Yuan retracted his right hand. The Ice Empress' injuries had completely healed. I'm healed. The Ice Empress was a little astonished as she sensed her own condition. It wasn't that hard to treat in the first place. Lu Yuan smiled. What kind of ability was that white light you used just now? I felt so comfortable when it shone on me. Now, I'm fully recovered. The Ice Empress asked curiously. Clear aura, godly power. Lu Yuan answered. Godly power? A look of shock flashed across the Ice Empress' eyes. I didn't expect you to be so pretty in your human form. On the vast expanse of white Snow Emperor, 3 figures were advancing rapidly. Lu Yuan sized up the Ice Empress beside him and couldn't help but smile. The Ice Empress wasn't very tall. She was only about 1.6 meters tall. She was petite and cute, and her long green hair fell to her waist. Her eyebrows were curved, and her face was as beautiful as jade. Her skin was glossy and smooth. The most eye-catching thing about her was her pair of proud breasts. They weren't just big. They were probably comparable to Zhu Zhuqing's. Even Lu Yuan, who had seen a lot of things, couldn't help but sigh in amazement. Pretty, right? I'm a natural beauty. I'm a #1 beauty in the Ice Jade Scorpion tribe. The Ice Empress boasted about herself without any modesty. Lu Yuan smiled faintly. In this short period of time, he had gained some understanding of the Ice Empress' personality. She was arrogant, proud, and domineering. She also had the personality of a little girl. However, in front of him, the Ice Empress rarely revealed her arrogance and domineering aura. She was often proud and a little narcissistic. However, the Ice Empress was still pretty good-looking, whether in her original form or in her human form. Chapter 1057. You are indeed pretty, but rumor has it that the Iceman is extremely beautiful. Who do you think is prettier between you and the Snow Emperor? Lu Yuan asked softly. Well, the Ice Empress pursed her lips. Compared to her, the Snow Emperor was naturally prettier. However, she couldn't bring herself to say that she wasn't as pretty as the Snow Emperor. The Ice Empress was also very headstrong. All right, you don't have to say anymore. I got it. Lu Yuan sighed softly and said, She's prettier than you. I really want to see how beautiful she is. Hey, Cher, why are you pinching me? Lu Yuan hadn't finished lamenting when a jade-like hand was placed on his waist. She pinched a pinch of flesh and pinched it viciously. Why am I pinching you? Don't you know? You pervert. Chihiro Snow snorted and pinched him again. How am I a pervert? I just want to appreciate beautiful things. Everyone has a love for beauty. Lu Yuan retorted righteously. Hee hee. Chihiro Snow chuckled coldly as he increased the strength of his pinch. Is this bastard's old habit acting up again? Is he having other thoughts again? She had just found out that the Pacizi liked her. Is he trying to do it again? Chihiro Snow became angrier the more she thought about it. She glared fiercely at Lu Yuan and said coquettishly, You're such a playboy. Lu Yuan was speechless. He was a little speechless after hearing Chihiro Snow's words. He was really just curious. Everyone said that the Snow Emperor was beautiful and had the potential to be the most beautiful woman in the world. He really just wanted to know how beautiful she was. Cher was overthinking things again. Furthermore, she was here to make the Snow Emperor her second martial soul. How could she overthink things like this? The Ice Empress couldn't help but look at Lu Yuan after hearing Chihiro Snow's words. Don't tell me you have other thoughts about the Snow Emperor. Let me remind you that the Snow Emperor is mine, the Ice Empress said seriously. She looked at Lu Yuan with a tinge of wariness in her eyes. She was like a hen protecting her food. The corner of Lu Yuan's mouth could not help but twitch. He looked at the two of them helplessly and said, "You guys sure know how to dream, and you're really awesome. Gay love, I wish you success, okay?" Lu Yuan pursed his lips and sped up. His figure flashed and disappeared. "Hey, wait for us." The Ice Empress and Qian Rinxue sped up to catch up to Lu Yuan. In the core region of the extreme north. Boom! Energy exploded. Snowflakes danced in the air. A beautiful lady in a white dress was fighting with two middle-aged men. One of the two middle-aged men was dressed in green, while the other was dressed in white. Both of them exuded terrifying auras. What a powerful soul beast. I feel like she's not much weaker than the evil-eye tyrant king. The green-robed man said softly. His attacks were getting sharper and sharper. Indeed. In a one-on-one fight, the two of us are no match for her. No wonder the Demon Emperor, a half-step pinnacle Demon Emperor, died at her hands. The white-robed man added. A dragon's roar could be heard from his body. A white light dragon that was a few hundred meters long was pushed forward. Emperor's sword, unparalleled chill. The beautiful lady shouted. An icy blue light sword appeared in her hand. She waved it gently, and the icy blue light sword became 100 times bigger. It slashed the huge white light dragon in half. Emperor's palm, Emperor's snow, Emperor's palm, Emperor's winter. Emperor's sword, unparalleled chill. It was one of the Snow Emperor's 3 ultimate swords. This move was extremely powerful. Just one sword was enough to destroy the white-robed man's attack. This lady in white was the leader of the extreme North's 3 heavenly kings. She was the ruler of the extreme North, the Iceman, the Snow Emperor. The green-robed man smiled when he saw the Snow Emperor's actions. Green light flashed on his body, and a huge ball of lightning was formed. He pushed it gently, and the ball of lightning shot toward the Snow Emperor. The Emperor's sword was waved again. It slashed the ball of lightning into half. The Snow Emperor turned her eyes, and a bone-chilling aura exuded from her body. "Green Empress, let's attack together," the white-robed man shouted. He turned into a huge white dragon that was a few hundred meters long. This white dragon had a pair of wings. Its head was ferocious, and there was a pair of blood-red eyes on its white head. The Emerald Sea White Dragon was a top-tier bee-soul that possessed both water and slaughter attributes. Its attack power was extremely strong. White Emperor is actually serious. Let's end this quickly. The green-robed man smiled. His 7th soul ring lit up, and a blinding green light erupted from his body. A 100-meter-long green lion appeared in midair. This lion's 4 legs were covered in blood-red flames. Its sharp teeth extended out of its mouth, and it was extremely intimidating. A lion's roar could be heard in the air. Green lightning came from the lion's body. The lightning exploded, and it carried an extremely terrifying, explosive energy. The green lightning blood lion was a top-tier bee-soul that possessed both lightning and slaughter attributes. It was best at attacking. The Emerald Sea White Dragon and the Green Lightning Blood Lion were both top-tier bee-souls that had mutated. In terms of strength, they were not much weaker than transcendent martial souls. The dragon roared and the lion roared. The dragon and lion pounced towards the Snow Emperor crazily. There was a serious look in the Snow Emperor's eyes. Both of them were at the same level as her. If it was a one-on-one battle, she would be able to defeat either of them in the extreme north. However, 2 ultimate Douluo were working together. Even a demigod would have a hard time taking them down. Furthermore, she was facing the Snow Emperor. She had been having a hard time resisting them all this while. Now that both of them had unleashed their martial soul true bodies, the pressure she faced was even greater. Snowy Dance of the Sun. The Snow Emperor opened her mouth slightly. Suddenly, ice and snow exploded. Cold winds accompanied the snowflakes. A huge domain was formed 10,000 meters around the Snow Emperor. Snowflakes danced in the air, and the light was extremely bright. Even the sun's radiance was overshadowed. The last of the Snow Emperor's 3 ultimate skills, Imperial Chill, Snowy Dance of the Sun, faced with the attacks of 2 ultimate Douluo. The Snow Emperor started to fight with all her might. Wait for us. Why are you flying so fast? Chihiro Snow and the Ice Empress finally caught up with Lu Yuan. They each held onto Lu Yuan's side. Lu Yuan looked at them helplessly. He had nothing to say to these 2 women. How far are we? Lu Yuan asked. Huh? The Ice Empress was a little confused. I said, how far are we from the Snow Emperor? Lu Yuan repeated angrily. Soon. We're almost there. We're already very close to the Snow Emperor. The Ice Empress said coquettishly. Okay. Lu Yuan gently nodded his head. Suddenly, his ears twitched as a series of faint, miserable howls sounded in his ears. Lu Yuan's eyes involuntarily hardened. Chapter 1058. Did you hear any screams? Lu Yuan asked. No. Chihiro Snow shook his head blankly. Snowflakes were drifting in the core region, and the northern wind was howling. Their ears were filled with the sound of the wind, and they couldn't hear anything else. On the other hand, the Ice Empress closed her eyes and carefully sensed her surroundings. Suddenly, she opened her eyes, and flames appeared in her green pupils. Those fellows are still killing soul beasts, the Ice Empress said furiously. Where? Lu Yuan asked. Northeast. The Ice Empress pointed in that direction. She had communicated with the ice and snow earlier, and sensed that something strange was happening in the northeast direction. She was also a possessor of ultimate ice, and was very compatible with the element of ice. Like the Snow Emperor, she could communicate with ice and snow. In the eyes of ultimate ice cultivators like her, ice wasn't an inanimate object. It had its own consciousness. Of course, the Snow Emperor was better at communicating. She only knew a little about it, and could only sense what was happening within a certain range. She couldn't sense anything further. Northeast. Lu Yuan's eyes flashed. Through the heavy snowflakes, he saw a group of people hunting soul beasts 5,000 meters away. There's also a huge soul beast fighting with that group of people. As expected, it's in the northeast direction. Follow me. Lu Yuan's figure moved, and he took the lead. Chihiro Snow and the Ice Empress hurriedly followed. For Lu Yuan and the others, the 5-kilometer distance was nothing more than a blink of an eye. Not long after, Lu Yuan and the others arrived at the scene. It's them. They're the ones who hurt me. The Ice Empress suddenly became unusually furious. She pointed at 2 people who were fighting a white bear that was more than 20 meters tall. Both of them had the best combination of soul rings, and their 9th soul ring was a 100,000-year soul ring. Both of them were rank 98, and it was no wonder that they could hurt the Ice Empress. At the very least, under the attacks of the 2 people, the big white bear had no power to fight back at all. It was already covered in wounds, blood staining its snow-white fur. It was obviously an arrow at the end of its flight. There were 4 titled Douluo and many soul Douluo below them. Each of the 4 titled Douluo was at rank 96, and 3 of them were held back by 300,000-year soul beasts. The remaining titled Douluo and the soul Douluo were massacring the surrounding soul beasts. There were ice bears, ice crystal birds, and even ice jade scorpions. My clansmen, you deserve to die. Seeing a 30,000-year-old icy jade scorpion being killed, the Ice Empress' eyes turned red. She returned to her original form and charged forward. Has the entire Holy Ghost Church been strengthened? His strength has actually become so terrifying. Lu Yuan frowned slightly. With a flash of his figure, he rushed over. The Ice Empress had just recovered from her injuries, and he was afraid that she would be in danger. Chihiro Snow raised his eyebrows. With his 8-winged angel martial soul, he carried his angelic holy sword and chased after the Ice Empress. Die, you bunch of bastards! The Ice Empress spat out a huge green icicle and directly froze a Soul Douluo who couldn't dodge in time. With a light tap of her scorpion tail, that Soul Douluo was instantly crushed. Not even his corpse was left behind. It's you? The Ice Empress' powerful attack immediately attracted the attention of the Evil Soul Masters. The two Evil Soul Masters who were attacking the Ice Bear King paused. They recognized the soul beast that had escaped from their hands. Be Empress, go. Don't let it escape again. Don't worry, Poison Empress. Leave it to me. This time, I'll definitely kill it. The Bee Empress smiled evilly and pounced towards the Ice Empress. The Ice Empress snorted coldly, and the temperature around them dropped even further. Icicles shot towards the Bee Empress. The Bee Empress didn't retreat. She gently smashed the icicles that the Ice Empress sent over. Ah, you're so hot-tempered. Let me do it. Lu Yuan grabbed Frost Monarch's scorpion tail and pulled him back just as he was about to pounce. Let go of me. I'm going to kill him. The Ice Empress waved her huge scorpion pincer at Lu Yuan and shouted, I'm going to faint. Don't you know that you've just recovered from your injuries? Your abilities haven't fully recovered. Are you tired of living? Lu Yuan mocked her. I'm going to kill him. Ouch. The Ice Empress was still throwing a tantrum. Suddenly, a finger of light landed on her head. She was in so much pain that she couldn't help but cry out. Stand at the back. I'll do it, Lu Yuan said in an unquestionable tone. Just do it. Why are you so fierce? The Ice Empress muttered as she slowly retreated. Lu Yuan was serious, and she was a little terrified when he unleashed his might. Let go my tail. The Ice Empress said, Don't you know that the tail is the most sensitive part of a scorpion's body? This bastard. If you didn't save me, I would have taught you a lesson. Go. Lu Yuan let go of his hand and said softly. The Ice Empress crawled behind Lu Yuan. To be honest, she had never seen Lu Yuan in action before. Back then, she had been captured alive with just a few casual moves. She had not been able to tell anything at all. This time, she wanted to take a good look. The Bee Empress looked at Lu Yuan in amazement. She squinted her eyes slightly and swayed her waist gently. There was a strange charm to her. Little husband, where are you from? You're so handsome. You really move my heart. Why don't you come with me? I'll dote on you. The Bee Empress said coquettishly. The Holy Ghost Church has 4 emperors, 2 emperors, and 1 sect leader. I heard that person call you the Bee Empress. You must be one of the 4 emperors. I didn't expect there to be a woman among the 4 emperors. Lu Yuan was a little surprised. There were more men than women in the world of soul masters. There were very few female soul masters, and there were even fewer high-level female soul masters. There were so many titled Douluo in the entire continent, but only Bibidon and Pasizi were women. Now, the Bee Empress of the Holy Ghost Church was also a woman. This was very impressive. Oh, little husband, you actually know so much about the Holy Ghost Church. Do you want me to pull you into the Holy Ghost Church? I can guarantee you a high position. The Bee Empress looked at Lu Yuan with a hint of lust in her eyes. She loved to do things between men and women the most, and she had kept a bunch of gigolos. She had cultivated to become a titled Douluo, and she had done a lot of things to replenish her yin. Now that she saw such a handsome Lu Yuan, strange thoughts surfaced in her heart again. She decided to play with Lu Yuan properly. When she was tired of him, she would suck him dry. It wasn't easy to find someone like him. The Bee Empress' eyes sparkled as she thought until here. There was once a guy called the Blood Emperor who said something similar to you. After that, he died. After hearing the Bee Empress' words, Lu Yuan curled the corner of his mouth and laughed softly. After hearing this, the Bee Empress' eyes flashed with a sharp light, and her face turned gloomy. Chapter 1059. You were the one who killed the Blood Emperor? The Bee Empress stared at Lu Yuan with a sharp look in her eyes. No, I only chopped off one of his arms. I've always felt regretful about this. Fortunately, I met all of you again. This time, I can kill to my heart's content." Lu Yuan chuckled as he spoke. The Bee Empress's face turned black when she heard this. Her eyes were filled with killing intent. "How dare you hurt someone from the Holy Church? Today, I'll skin you alive and let the world know the consequences of offending the Holy Church." The Bee Empress shouted coldly as her aura exploded. Her 9 soul rings, yellow, purple, purple, black, black, and red, shone brightly. A huge wasp appeared behind her and buzzed continuously. The Death Queen Bee was the Bee Empress martial soul. It was an extremely vicious beast martial soul. Death Queen Bee, if you meet Dong Air with your martial soul, you'll definitely die. Lu Yuan smiled. Bibiden's first martial soul was the Death Spider Empress, and his second martial soul was the Soul-Devouring Spider Empress. They were both the kings of Spider-type martial souls. They were the natural nemesis of Bee-type martial souls. How arrogant! The Wasp Emperor snorted, and her 6th soul ring lit up. Immediately, the sky was filled with countless bees, and they swarmed toward Lu Yuan in an overwhelming manner. These wasps were formed from soul skills and were extremely poisonous. Once one was bitten, one would be poisoned. The Death Queen Bee's poison was very scary. It was a neurotoxin that was very harmful. Furthermore, it was very painful. Lu Yuan, be careful. The Ice Empress reminded him. Don't worry, it's just a wasp swarm. It's nothing. Lu Yuan smiled as he tapped his finger gently. Suddenly, thousands of snowflakes appeared in the sky. The snowflakes condensed and turned into icicles. Lu Yuan tapped his finger again. Countless icicles shot forward and wiped out all the wasps in the sky. Ice control? Furthermore, this ice control technique is very advanced. The Ice Empress exclaimed as she saw Lu Yuan's move. The Bee Empress was also in a daze. Her 6th soul skill had been broken just like that. Furthermore, that man didn't seem to have released his martial soul at all. The Queen Bee suddenly had a bad premonition. Since you've already made your move, then you should take one of my palms as well. Lu Yuan said softly. He raised his right hand and slapped down. In an instant, the world spun and the space collapsed. A huge palm print slammed down on the Wasp Emperor. That terrifying aura completely locked onto the Wasp Emperor, making it impossible for her to escape. Don't! The Bee Empress let out a terrified cry as she unleashed all of her soul skills. However, it was useless. The palm print continued to press down, and the Wasp Queen's body exploded into a bloody mist. The downward palm print slammed into the ground, creating a huge crater that was several hundred meters deep and filled with flying snowflakes. It immediately produced a violent sound. The soul masters and soul beasts that were fighting on the ground were all shaken to the point of staggering. Snowflakes filled the sky, and a cold spring emerged from a deep pit. This palm had directly pierced through the layer of ice. Gulp! The Ice Empress swallowed her saliva and stared at Lu Yuan in astonishment. This was a rank 98 Douluo, but he killed her with a single palm. What kind of godlike figure was he? She's much more powerful than the Snow Empress. She's awesome. The Ice Empress' haughtiness had completely disappeared. She looked at Lu Yuan with a faint look of worship in her eyes. Bee Empress. If the Ice Empress was astonished, the Poison Emperor was terrified. What had he just seen? The Bee Empress had been killed with a single palm print? Oh yes, you too. You could die too. The Poison Emperor's voice attracted Lu Yuan's attention. He pointed at the Poison Emperor and pointed at him. A white light appeared. As he pointed, boundless ice-type energy gathered in the air and formed an ice spear that was more than 100 meters long. This ice spear stabbed towards the Poison Emperor. Ultimate ice? The Ice Empress couldn't help but exclaim. She could clearly feel the temperature of the ice spear. It was definitely at the level of ultimate ice. Is this fellow a freak? The Ice Empress blinked. He can actually control ultimate ice? Oh no, block it! The Poison Emperor, who was locked onto by the ice spear, sensed the threat of death. Dark poisonous gas spread, and his body suddenly transformed into a huge centipede. The dark demonic centipede emperor was the poison emperor's martial soul. The icicle spear shot towards the poison emperor with a frightening aura. The incomparably sharp spear light carried the chilliness of ultimate ice, causing the poison emperor's body and mind to tremble. The centipede that the poison emperor had transformed into let out a trembling cry. Dark black armor covered his entire body as he retaliated strongly against the ice spear. Krika, the ice spear and the armor clashed, and a creaking sound could be heard. After this, the ice spear shone brightly and pierced through the armor. The centipede's huge body was stabbed deep into the ice layer, not far away. The centipede let out a mournful wail. Its long body was curled up, and its hundreds of legs were flapping. It was a hair-raising sight. It was like a centipede that didn't fall down even though it was dead. However, as time passed, the centipede's body gradually stopped convulsing. It turned back into the poison emperor's appearance. His face was pale, and he was already dead. The ice spear was still embedded in his body. The poison emperor's small body was like an ant under the ice spear. The poison emperor is dead. The poison emperor and the wasp empress were killed one after another. The evil soul masters from the Holy Ghost Church couldn't sit still anymore. They all wanted to escape, but the soul beast counterattacks also became fiercer and fiercer. They held them back. Lu Yuan looked at the evil soul masters below. He lifted his right hand and tapped out with his finger. Every time he tapped out, a tidal Douluo would explode and die. Even the poison emperor couldn't resist a single tap, let alone them. Angelic demon, subduing slash. Qianren Xue shouted as she used her angelic holy sword to slice the last evil tidal Douluo into two. Her angel martial soul was the bane of evil soul masters, and with the angelic holy sword, Qianren Xue could even exchange blows with the poison emperor. Killing an evil tidal Douluo wouldn't be difficult for her. After the tidal Douluo died, the remaining soul Douluo were surrounded by soul beasts. The 300,000-year soul beasts led the charge, and they were beaten to death. At this point, all the evil soul masters were wiped out. Lu Yuan descended from midair and collected the soul bones that the evil soul masters had dropped. Everything else aside, he had to obtain the 200,000-year soul bones from the Wasp Empress and the Poison Emperor. They were rare treasures. Hulina, Zhu Zhuqing, Ning Rongrong, and the others were all useful. After collecting all the soul bones and storing them in his astral ring, Lu Yuan walked towards the Ice Empress. There were many casualties in this battle. Many evil soul masters died, but even more soul beasts died. Chapter 1060. Corpses were piled up on the ground, and blood was flowing everywhere. The smell of blood was extremely pungent. However, the soul beasts didn't notice this. Their gazes were fixed on Lu Yuan. Lu Yuan couldn't help but chuckle when he saw the Ice Empress staring at him with her big yellow eyes. "Why are you looking at me like that? Don't you recognize me? You're so powerful." The Ice Empress stared at him and spoke in a crisp voice. "I know that." Lu Yuan smiled faintly. The Ice Empress was speechless. Why doesn't this fellow know how to be humble? Lu Yuan smiled as he looked at the dazed Ice Empress. His polychoria shifted slightly, and he took in everything that was happening. He couldn't help but sigh and say, "It seems like you soul beasts have suffered heavy losses this time." The Ice Empress was furious when she heard this. She said furiously, "It's all because of these evil soul masters. They massacred so many soul beasts in the extreme north. It's too easy for them to die just like that." However, her tone turned gentle as she said to Lu Yuan, "I really have to thank you this time. You saved so many soul beasts, and you even helped me take revenge. Thank you so much." "What are you thanking me for?" "It's nothing." Lu Yuan waved his hand, as if he didn't care at all. "Furthermore, we're friends. Why are you treating me like an outsider?" Lu Yuan laughed. "We're friends?" The Ice Empress was stunned when she heard this. "Why? You're not willing to be friends with me?" Lu Yuan blinked and asked. I'm willing. I'm just a little stunned. I don't have any friend apart from the Snow Emperor. The Ice Empress shook her head and said, That's tragic. Lu Yuan said sympathetically. I'm not pitiful at all. I'm a noble Ice Jade Empress Scorpion, the wielder of ultimate ice. I don't want to be friends with those ordinary ice-type soul beasts. Right? I remember now. How can you control ultimate ice? The Ice Empress was confused as she looked at Lu Yuan. Is that difficult? Lu Yuan asked with a smile. Isn't it difficult? The Ice Empress asked. It's not difficult. Lu Yuan nodded and said. The Ice Empress was speechless. This is ultimate ice. The Ice Empress raised her voice and emphasized. I know. That's why I said it's not difficult. Lu Yuan said with a smile. The Ice Empress took in a deep breath. She suddenly felt that Lu Yuan was asking for a beating. This was the ultimate ice ability that the Ice Jade Scorpions were most proud of. How could Lu Yuan say that it wasn't difficult? In the entire extreme north, only the Ice Jade Scorpions and the Snow Emperor possessed ultimate ice. Has anyone ever told you that you're asking for a beating? Ice Empress gritted her teeth. Many, but none of them can defeat me, Lu Yuan said with a smile. The Ice Empress was speechless. All right, you're very strong. All right, I won't argue with you. The Ice Empress waved her scorpion pincers at Lu Yuan. She bared her fangs and brandished her claws. After that, she turned around and faced her back to Lu Yuan. Lu Yuan smiled faintly. The Frost Empress was a little cute. Obuchi. Chihiro Snow's voice rang out beside Lu Yuan's ear. Her slender figure suddenly appeared beside Lu Yuan. A faint fragrance wafted from Chihiro Snow's body. Lu Yuan lifted his right hand and tucked Chihiro Snow's messy hair behind her ear. As he caressed Chihiro Snow's face, Lu Yuan smiled and said, I saw your performance just now. Not bad. You single-handedly killed a rank 96 transcendent Douluo. My share is really impressive. Being praised by Lu Yuan, Qian Rinchue's heart was filled with joy, and a beautiful smile bloomed on her face. Compared to you, I'm still far behind. Chihiro Snow replied humbly. Lu Yuan smiled and gently hugged her with his left hand. Chihiro Snow took a step forward and burrowed into Lu Yuan's embrace. Hey, can the two of you show off your affection later? Help me. The Ice Empress turned around and saw Lu Yuan and Chihiro Snow hugging each other. Her face turned black as she shouted, What's the matter? Stop making a fuss. Lu Yuan pursed his lips and said, Help save this bear, the Ice Empress said. Lu Yuan glanced around and saw an injured white bear. It was the Ice Bear King, who had been beaten up by the Bee Empress and the Poison Emperor. If Lu Yuan wasn't wrong, this fellow was called Little Bai. As he thought of this, Lu Yuan couldn't help but think of the great white shark king on the Sea God's Island. She was also called Little Bai. Now that he thought about it, Little Bai seemed a little overboard. Reality proved that he had to be serious about naming people. He couldn't just fool around. Otherwise, it would be a little awkward if he met someone with the same name. Let's go and take a look. Lu Yuan withdrew his thoughts and said to Chihiro Snow. Chihiro Snow nodded. The two of them held hands and walked in front of the Ice Bear King. The Ice Bear King was very big. He was more than 20 meters tall. Right now, he looked like a small hill as he lay on the ground. The Ice Bear King had been beaten up very badly. There were at least 100 wounds on his body, and his originally glossy fur had become a little dim. His wounds were filled with black gas, and his giant bear eyes had turned slightly white. He was close to the end of his life. The Ice Bear King only had 200,000 years of cultivation. His abilities were at most comparable to a rank 97 transcendent Douluo. Even though the extreme north was his home ground, he could at most fight a rank 98 transcendent Douluo. He definitely wouldn't be able to defeat them. The Bee Empress and the Poison Emperor were both genuine rank 98 Douluo. The Ice Bear King had to fight them alone and even dragged on for a long time. Naturally, he didn't care about his own body. He was already covered in wounds. Right now, he was on his last breath. How's Little Bai? Can he be saved? The Ice Empress asked concernedly. The Ice Bear King was raised by the Snow Emperor. He was like her child. The Ice Empress also treated the Ice Bear King as her junior. Naturally, she didn't want him to die just like that. The poison has entered his heart. There's no cure. Lu Yuan shook his head and sighed. The Ice Bear King's external injuries were very serious. However, Lu Yuan didn't think they couldn't be cured. The problem was that the Poison Emperor and the Bee Empress poison had already entered the Ice Bear King's heart. There was no cure. While the clear divine power was powerful, it had its limits. It couldn't bring someone back to life. Furthermore, the clear divine power's greatest healing ability was its regenerative ability. However, the Ice Bear King was poisoned. Furthermore, the poison had already entered his heart. This was why Lu Yuan couldn't do anything. After hearing Lu Yuan's words, the Ice Empress' heart skipped a beat. She hurriedly asked, "There's no cure? Even you can't save him?" "I can't save him either." Lu Yuan shook his head and replied, "If the poison hadn't entered his heart, he could have cured the Ice Bear King no matter how strong the poison was. However, it was too late now." Chapter 1061. After Lu Yuan finished speaking, the Ice Empress couldn't help but shudder. She felt a tinge of sorrow in her heart. She felt terrible watching the Ice Bear King die, just like that. "Sire, my condolences," Lu Yuan said softly. His eyes sparkled as he looked at the Ice Bear King. Although the Ice Bear King was incurable, he still had a chance to live forever if he turned into a spirit. However, Lu Yuan didn't mention it now. The time wasn't right yet. If he wanted the Ice Bear King to become his spirit, he had to deal with the Snow Emperor first. The Snow Emperor had raised the Ice Bear King, and he basically listened to the Snow Emperor on everything. Once he dealt with the Snow Emperor and made her his second martial soul, he wouldn't have to worry about the Ice Bear King anymore. He would naturally deliver himself to his doorstep. Chihiro Snow's golden eyes turned. She moved closer to Lu Yuan and transmitted her voice. "You really can't save him?" "I really can't," Lu Yuan replied. "You're not saying that because of the Ice Bear King's soul ring and soul bone?" Chihiro Snow asked. The Ice Bear King was an ice-type savage beast and was extremely compatible with her second martial soul. Chihiro Snow thought that Lu Yuan was saying that because he wanted her to get a good soul ring. "Do I look like that kind of person? I do want the Ice Bear King to be your soul ring, but there's no need to lie. If I can't save him, I can't save him. How dare you doubt me?" Lu Yuan glared at Chihiro Snow and transmitted his voice. "I was wrong. Don't be angry." Chihiro Snow hugged Lu Yuan's arm when she saw that Lu Yuan was getting angry. "Oomph." Lu Yuan snorted and pulled his arm out. Chihiro Snow rolled her eyes and hugged Lu Yuan's arm again. Lu Yuan pulled it out again. Chihiro Snow blinked and pounced forward. This time, she threw herself into Lu Yuan's arms and hugged him tightly. Then, her red lips quickly pecked on Lu Yuan's lips. Lu Yuan was amenable to coaxing, but not coercion. She had long understood that no coercion would work on Lu Yuan. Acting coquettishly, acting cute, and crying were the most effective methods. It was difficult for her to act cute and shed tears. She couldn't do it, but she could still act coquettishly. Although there were many soul beasts here, her face was a little red. "Don't think that this will work. I'm telling you, don't try this." Lu Yuan glanced at Chihiro Snow and said indifferently, "Is it really useless?" Chihiro Snow revealed a trace of smile. How could she not feel that Lu Yuan's anger had long disappeared? He was just pretending now. "It's useless." Lu Yuan stretched out his right hand and pinched Chihiro Snow's face hard. Chihiro Snow was in so much pain that her small face scrunched up, and she looked at him with hidden bitterness. After the continent was unified, the heavy burden on Chihiro Snow's shoulders disappeared. Chihiro Snow also became more lively. She now enjoyed the feeling of being together with Lu Yuan. In the past, she basically never acted coquettishly, but now she would occasionally do it. Looking at Chihiro Snow's resentful little eyes, Lu Yuan couldn't help but smile in his heart. The one who understood him the most was always this girl. In front of her, it was always difficult for him to truly get angry. Gently rubbing Chihiro Snow's head, Lu Yuan sighed slightly. Cher, you should believe me. I'm not as despicable as you think. I was wrong, Chihiro Snow said pitifully. She absolutely believed in Lu Yuan when it came to major matters. She had never doubted him. But for these small matters, she liked to blindly ponder over them. You're just too paranoid. You always like to guess in a bad direction. But I can't blame you. You've been undercover for so many years, I'm afraid it's a habit. But now, you don't need to be undercover anymore. You could try to come out, Lu Yuan said softly. Chihiro Snow nodded vigorously, and then gently leaned her head on Lu Yuan's shoulder. Lu Yuan gently wrapped his arms around Chihiro Snow's waist. His eyes flickered slightly. This feeling of being suspected by others was really unpleasant. If he didn't know Chihiro Snow's character and experience, and if it were Zhu Zhuqing and the others, he would definitely be angry. However, Zhu Zhuqing and Hulina had never doubted anything he said except for the matters between men and women. Not to mention BB Dawn. Although Chihiro Snow understood him the most and had a tacit understanding with him, she was not as good as them in this aspect. I didn't notice in the past, but Cher really has a lot of problems with her. Lu Yuan thought to himself. Bibidon's beautiful face suddenly appeared in his mind. He then looked at Chihiro Snow and made a slight comparison. The scales in his heart that were originally leaning towards Chihiro Snow tilted slightly towards BB Dawn. Looks like Dong Air is still more suitable for that position. Lu Yuan thought to himself as his double pupils turned slightly. Lu Yuan. The Ice Empress voice rang out beside Lu Yuan's ear. What's wrong? Lu Yuan let go of Chihiro Snow and asked the Ice Empress. Let's go and save the Snow Emperor. I'm afraid that the Snow Emperor will end up like Little Bai if we're too late, the Ice Empress said softly. All right, Lu Yuan nodded. His right hand flickered with white light as he swept it across the Ice Bear King's body. Lu Yuan, what are you doing? The Ice Empress asked, a little confused. I'm helping him temporarily delay his injuries and prolong his life. This is all I can do, Lu Yuan said. Thank you. How long can it last? The Ice Empress asked. 7 days. I can prolong his life for 7 days. 7 days? That's enough. The Snow Emperor should be able to see him for the last time. You don't know this, but the Snow Emperor actually raised the Ice Bear King. The Snow Emperor is his mother. Sigh. Who knows how sad the Snow Emperor will be if he knows that he doesn't have long to live. The Ice Empress sighed. All right, let's go. The Ice Empress sighed for a while before coming back to her senses. All right, let's go, Cher. Lu Yuan said gently. All right, Chihiro Snow replied. Chihiro Snow was exceptionally obedient right now. The Ice Empress instructed the rest of the soul beasts before leading Lu Yuan and Chihiro Snow towards the deepest part of the extreme North Core region. That was where the Snow Emperor lived and where the battle would take place. This time, the three of them were moving at full speed. Their figures flashed through the air, and they turned into streaks of light that were as swift as lightning. They were moving so quickly that the three of them were getting closer and closer to where the Snow Emperor was. 15 minutes later, a strong gust of wind blew towards them. Snowflakes flew towards them, and the three of them stopped abruptly. There was a vast expanse of whiteness in front of them. In the sky above them, the snowflakes formed an enormous tornado of ice and snow that engulfed the area. It brought with it extremely terrifying undulations. This is the Snow Emperor's snowy dance of the radiant sun. It has turned the area 10,000 meters around the Snow Emperor into a domain of ice and snow. That tornado of ice and snow should be the work of the Snow Emperor. The Ice Empress pointed at the vast expanse of whiteness in front of them and spoke loudly. Chapter 1062, Snow Dance of the Radiant Sun, Snow Emperor's 3 Ultimate Skills. Not bad. Lu Yuan observed the domain in front of him, and a radiance flashed across his eyes as he sighed softly. The Snow Emperor is indeed very powerful. However, he has already used his Snow Dance of the Radiant Sun. From the looks of it, the Snow Emperor is already giving it his all. I'm a little worried. The Ice Empress sounded very serious. Are you worried that the Snow Emperor will be injured? Lu Yuan asked. Yes. The Ice Empress acknowledged softly, and there was a look of concern in her eyes. I'm afraid he's already injured. Lu Yuan muttered to himself. Even if the Snow Empress had the advantage of the environment, she would still lose if she had to face two opponents alone. It was already very difficult for him to hold on for so long. However, Lu Yuan didn't say this out loud, in case the Ice Empress became anxious. The two of you wait here. I'll go in and take a look. Lu Yuan looked at Chihiro Snow and the Ice Empress as he said, I want to go too. The Ice Empress said crisply, Stay here. You can't interfere in a battle between ultimate Douluo. Furthermore, you haven't fully recovered. If you go in, I'll have to take care of you. Lu Yuan glanced at the Ice Emperor and said in annoyance. Yeah. Lu Yuan stared at the Ice Empress with a sense of pressure. The Ice Empress shrank her neck as she sensed the pressure in Lu Yuan's eyes and muttered softly, Fine, I won't go. Why are you so fierce? Lu Yuan's strength was too strong. Just looking at it made it feel a little flustered. Moreover, the pressure from the bloodline made it feel like it had no desire to resist. You won't be obedient if I'm not fierce to you. You're a female scorpion, yet you're so reckless. Lu Yuan twisted his lips and said plainly. As he spoke, Lu Yuan turned to Chihiro Snow. Cher, stay here. Don't run around. All right, Chihiro Snow replied softly. Lu Yuan nodded and then directly charged into the Snow Emperor's domain. There were even more snowflakes within the domain, and visibility was extremely low. There was a bone-piercing chill in the air. They were both using ultimate ice, but the temperature of the Snow Emperor's ice was even lower than the Ice Empress. His control over the temperature of ice is almost on par with mine. As expected of the Snow Emperor, Lu Yuan had a hint of admiration in his eyes. After receiving the Ice Dragon King sacrifice, his control of ice had reached an extremely high level. He originally thought that no one on the continent could be his opponent except for Gu Yuna, but now it seemed that the Snow Emperor's control of ice was not inferior to his. This is getting interesting. Lu Yuan smiled. His dual pupils flickered as he quickly flew in the direction of the ice and snow tornado. What a powerful soul beast. It's so difficult to deal with. There is a bloody wound on the lion that the Green Emperor had transformed into. It had been slashed open by the Snow Emperor. Even though he and the White Emperor had teamed up, he was still injured by the Snow Emperor. He couldn't help but feel frustrated. Stop fooling around. Let's get serious. She has already exhausted all my patience. The White Emperor was also injured. A few of his scales were broken, and he was dripping with blood. The Snow Emperor's attacks were relatively fierce. Two ultimate Douluo were injured. Okay, the Green Emperor nodded. Lightning exploded from his body, and a terrifying lion's roar sounded. The green Thunderblood lion, which was originally 100 meters long, suddenly grew 3 times larger. It became 300 meters long, and the terrifying lion's roar cleared the surrounding snowflakes. The White Emperor also let out a loud dragon's roar. His draconic aura shook the sky, and the white dragon's body suddenly grew to more than 300 meters long. The dragon and lion collided quickly. One of them exuded a jade-green light, while the other exuded a dazzling white light. Their auras directly connected and resonated with each other. Oh no! A look of shock flashed across the Snow Emperor's eyes. Faint traces of blood flowed from the corner of her mouth, and her face was slightly pale. In fact, her injuries were much more serious than the White Emperor and the Green Emperor. It wasn't easy to fight 2 people alone. She would be defeated in less than an hour if they continued fighting. However, she was confident that she could drag one of them down with her. However, the situation seemed to be a little out of her control. After the 2 of them absorbed each other's auras, their auras increased tremendously. It wasn't difficult for her to tell that it was a martial soul fusion skill. The Emerald Sea White Dragon was water and slaughter, while the Green Thunderblood Lion was lightning and slaughter. These two martial souls were very compatible and could unleash martial soul fusion skills. How strong was the martial soul fusion skill of two ultimate Douluo? Other things aside, a demigod definitely wouldn't be able to withstand it. At the very least, only a pseudo-god would be able to withstand it. If the Snow Emperor took this attack head-on, she might very well die. I can't let them fuse. The Snow Emperor's eyes sharpened, and her aura increased tremendously. With a push of her jade-like hand, a sky-piercing ice and snow tornado attacked in the direction of the Green Emperor and the White Emperor. Dream on. Martial Soul Fusion. Bloodthirsty Thunderblood Lion. Green and white light fused together, and the protective light released by the fusion of the green lion and the white dragon directly dispersed the sky-piercing ice and snow tornado. In the next moment, a huge dragon lion that was more than 800 meters long appeared in the sky. It had a white dragon head, a green lion body, and a pair of wings on its back. Its entire body was covered in blood-red lightning, and its foreclaws were emitting bright red flames. Its body was densely covered in green scales. This was the martial soul fusion skill of the Emerald Sea White Dragon and the Green Thunderblood Lion, Bloodthirsty Thunderblood Lion. This huge dragon lion roared into the sky and instantly destroyed the Snow Emperor's domain. Right now, both parties were no longer on the same level. The huge dragon lion ran wildly, and the blood-red lightning flashed on its body. A bolt of lightning that was as thick as a water bucket struck towards the Snow Emperor. Feeling the terrifying aura from the dragon lion, the Snow Emperor's eyes were filled with a trace of madness. Ice-type energy surged around the Snow Emperor. At this moment, the Snow Emperor completely ignited all the energy in her body. Emperor Sword Unparalleled Chill. The icy blue sword of light suddenly soared to more than 500 meters. The Snow Emperor waved her huge, icy blue sword and slashed towards the incoming lightning. Boom! The icy sword and lightning clashed, and both of them exploded. The energy undulations that were released directly pushed the Snow Emperor's body back. Due to the backlash, the Snow Emperor immediately spat out a large mouthful of blood. However, the dragon lion's huge body didn't move at all. The lightning just now was just a casual attack from it. However, the Snow Empress had to unleash all of her soul power to block this casual attack. Go to hell! The dragon lion roared, and a huge energy ball surged towards the Snow Emperor. The energy ball was more than 500 meters in size. The power of lightning and the power of slaughter surged within, and its destructive power was extremely high. This attack was much stronger than the lightning from before. This was a serious attack from the bloodthirsty Thunderblood Lion. If this attack hit, it was enough to destroy the Snow Emperor. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.